And we should be live now. Griffin Gaming RPG. How you doing tonight, man? Thanks so much for joining me tonight.
Pretty good. How are you, man? It's good to see you again.
Again, it's been a long time.
A very long time. It seems like forever, right?
Yeah, I know. But we met at CitizenCon in Austin. Is that
That's right.
That's right. Yeah. What were you doing there? Do you remember that? It's a long time
Yeah,
ago.
that was actually my second Citizen Con. The first one I attended when they were in Los Angeles in 2016. And after going to that one, I, even though it was one of those more, let's say, tumultuous cons, I really looked forward to going to Austin. I had actually gone to Austin the year before to attend VerseCon, which was a group of um, Star Citizen backers who do their own event in Austin during the years when the convention is in Europe. And so, folks in the United States, in Canada, if they can't make the trip across the pond, they're able to come down to Austin and meet with other like-minded backers. They had probably a couple hundred folks there that year, and that was the first time I'd actually been to Austin, Texas. So I actually was looking forward to going back to Austin in 2018 for CitizenCon, and as you said, that's where I got to meet you.
Yeah, that was my first time going to Austin. I'd never been to Austin before, so
Mm,
that was a cool experience. Yeah,
it
there's
was.
at least a couple hundred people, I'd say.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that was in 2017. I was really surprised for that being their first con, and then again when we went to the big one in 2018. Oh my God, it was great. It was really great, and you had a great display exhibition table there for your company, and I was really impressed with it. It was very very cool.
That's cool. Yeah, it was a heck of a wild ride, man. I gotta say, you signed up for doing a booth thing. It is a roller coaster for sure.
I
And
can imagine. I can imagine. When did you actually get there? Do you remember when you were down in Texas that time? How far ahead of time did you get there and get to set up and everything?
not long, like I think a day or so. That's a
Okay.
good question. When did I get there? Probably one or 1 or 2 days before, because there was a Fast Card's birthday was the day
That's right.
before.
That's right.
So I was
He
at
always celebrates it that week. That's right.
yeah, I was at Fast Card's birthday. That was
Hmm.
cool. And then I think setup was the next day. So and then that was it.
Wow.
You were committed to that. And the security people, they wouldn't let you leave. Like there was so much security there.
I can believe it. I can
W-
believe it. The um the other thing is you came down from Canada, right? Is that
Yeah,
correct? Okay.
yeah.
So you had a lot of like items and merchandise and stuff in relation to your organization that
Mm-hmm.
you had to have. Did that come with you, or did you ship it down separately, or how
No,
did you do that?
no. I had what did I have? I had 6 trade show banners. I had 2 linens. I had a whole bunch of swag and stuff. And I had I brought my flight yoke, the old SATEC flight
Yeah,
yokes,
yeah, yeah,
because I
yeah.
wanted to do this Fly a Starfarer thing at the convention. So I brought
Okay.
that with me too. I brought everything with the kitchen sink.
Wow.
Yeah, fortunately for me, I was living in a place where it was really convenient to do that.
Cool.
Because in Manchester it was a lot more difficult. Uh,
Mm,
but it's nice in the States. Things are pretty cheap there, so you get a couple of add-on bags. It's quite negligible. So
hmm.
and the company I was working for supported me quite a bit, which is weird.
Okay.
But there are a bunch of streamers and stuff like that. So that was a
Nice.
wild ride though, because it was just me, and
Hmm.
I was in the airport and stuff like that, and
Hmm.
I had like 2 of those luggage carousel or luggage holders or whatever you call them. And this other guy, this guy from the org, the
Hmm.
guy from like Ultima org, he was like 19 years old. I never met him before. His dad was a cop. I had to meet his cop before him, but he helped me through the whole thing.
Oh,
It was just so weird though, because it's like you meet this kid basically, and then oh hey, I'm this random stranger off the internet, and he's just like, okay, well, we got to go. We have to register at 10 a.m. or whatever. And he's like, hold on, we have to have breakfast with my cop dad first. And I was like, this isn't intimidating at all, but yeah, it's just a heck of an experience. But I loved it.
well, it was great. You had a really nice display, and it showed you had a lot of passion for Star Citizen. It was very impressive. So
I'd say that's an
very cool.
understatement. Passion,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Commitment. Let's just say that.
Commitment, enthusiasm, all of the above. Yeah, man. And
Absolutely.
that was the Kraken year too. The Kraken came out, so
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was really cool.
yeah.
And I think
It
like all
was.
of the like VIPs were there too. Like When I say VIPs, I mean like the community VIPs. Like I don't know
Mm-hmm.
anybody who really wasn't there. Like even the Europeans came, except for Board Gamer. He didn't show up. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he wasn't there for that one. You're right. But usually, I guess with LA and Austin being, I mean, don't get me wrong, all the studios are important studios. But obviously, with Austin being the home of where things got started, and then LA, you're going to get good turnout from the devs because obviously they can come from, if you're in Austin, they can come from LA. And if it's in LA, they can come from Austin. So it is kind of cool. Brian Chambers, though, was great. There were people who did come over from Germany and the UK that we saw. Like you said, there were some really good names of folks that were there.
Yeah, I didn't realize Brian Chambers was in Germany. Is he live there? It's his full time gig is in Germany?
Yeah, that's what I figured. Yeah, I guess so. I don't know the backstory on him personally in the sense of, where he may have been beforehand, or was he already in Germany at the time? I'm sure there's somebody out there who knows something along those lines. But yeah, that's where he's at. He's over that studio. Yeah.
It's so funny. He's got these characters, or Chris Roberts has these characters of people. I don't know where he gets them from.
Yeah.
Like Gavin, who they had interviewed last week, who was just releasing like a full length motion picture. Like,
Yes.
how did they get these people?
Well,
know?
it's interesting. A lot of times when people talk about the development of Star Citizen, they don't really know. Sure enough, Star Citizen puts out these invitations and applications for people to work for them, and they have brought in people that are entry level. But quite a few of the people that they have that work for them are people who've been in the industry for quite a while, if not for some even decades, and they know their stuff. They know what they're doing. It's also interesting, and I mean I know you know this already, but it is interesting that he's also brought over many of the people Chris has, people who he worked with in Hollywood when he had his motion picture production studio. So the relationships and networking he was able to do while making motion pictures and film, we saw that kind of some of those people being translated over into everything from the concept drawings to the physics and engineering in the game to the mocap that we saw. The relationships he has with people like Andy Serkis and Mark Hamill and Jillian, all those folks came from that relationship he had in the movie industry. So it's great that he was able to maintain those networks and create a company that's probably very different than a lot of other gaming companies.
That's true because it's kind of like an extension of the film industry, I would
Yeah,
say. Ooh, that's kind of
yeah,
where he comes from, I guess. I mean, which is
hmm
kind of cool because, in my opinion, I think that the film industry is going to become outdated or deprecated from the
hmm
video games. So maybe
hmm
it's not a bad thing to kind of transition the
yeah. Some
workforce or
weird
develop.
merge happening, some hybrid that comes from it, right?
Yeah, something a hybrid. Well, it could have been. You could say it's been hybridized for a while now. Like I remember
hmm
playing. What was it? Rebel Assault. There was like
hmm
an X-wing versus Tie Fighter sequel in the mid '90s, and it was
Right.
like we saw some real full-length motion picture.
hmm
I don't know, you'd call it cinematography or it's not
hmm
animation. They're like
Yeah.
real actors, and I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever,
Yeah. Yeah.
And
You're
it's like the
right.
first time where I was like, oh, I'm playing a video game, but I'm kind of watching a movie at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. The game tech has kind of shifted into that, and movie tech has shifted into gaming. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's creating something. We'll see what it finally ends up like. But you're absolutely right.
And like it's just seems like I don't know if I play too many video games now. I don't watch enough movies, but I'm kind of like have this expectation where if I go to a faraway land, I want to participate in it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to sit back and watch. That's no fun. I want to,
Mm-hmm.
get my hands dirty a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. The word we call it is what? Immersion.
Oh yes, immersion.
Immersion.
Have you played with VR much?
Yeah, I have an Oculus Rift.
Oh,
I actually never. I'm not gonna say I didn't think I'd ever get one, but as you know, even when it came out for consumers, the price originally was around in U.S. dollars around $700 if you wanted to have a decent setup. And at the time, I had $2 in school, everything else, it just wasn't going to happen. And right before Oculus and I forget what the other one is called, the Valve, the other one made by the one made by Steam, the Vive, sorry. Right when those two came out, a little bit after that, Oculus ended up knocking the price down from $699 to $399. Actually, I caught it on sale for $349, and so I bought a Rift at that point, and I loved it. The problem was it was still early in the sense of computers that were designed for VR,
yeah.
and the one that I had, even though my memory was good, my graphics card was capable of handling it. The processor I had at the time was already about 3 years old, and so it would strain. And so maybe about 60% of what I got VR, I could run, but the other 40% of things, it wasn't even worth trying to do it. And just a few months ago, I finally did an upgrade to the computer now. So now I have a rig with a 3950 in it, and I can run VR without any problem. So, and I really like it. I really like it, even though the Oculus Rift is a few years old now. And they've got a newer version out. I still enjoy the one that I have. So yeah, VR is definitely immersive.
What's your favorite VR title?
You know, that's a good question. I haven't bought anything new, and I hate to say that because what I started doing was going back and playing the old stuff that I had. The one thing that I did get was this one Vader Eternal,
Oh yeah.
uh, and because I heard my friend Montoya mention it, and he talked about how good it was, and boy, it is amazing. I haven't even gotten into doing the game. I hate to say that. It's just messing around with the tutorial, with learning how to use the lightsaber and fight against the little, I forget what they call the little trainer balls, but doing that, it's amazing to see how far it's come already. And now you're not getting these little demos now, but now you're getting things that are moving much more toward a game. And so I haven't had a chance to delve into anything new other than that. I've been really going back and doing. There's an old game called Air Car. I don't know if you've ever played that or seen it.
Is
Um,
that the one that came with the Windows 95 operating system? Nope. Okay.
No, this was, I don't know, I don't remember that one, but this one is VR. And think of Blade Runner with the car that was in Blade Runner. It's
Yep.
exactly that, over a very dingy city, just like in Blade Runner, and you fly it, and it's this is probably the one VR game that I could actually even get sick from flying, because the
Interesting.
motion in it is so real. And when you're flying it, you truly, truly feel as if you're flying it. There's rain on the windows, and there are other ships flying in the air around you, and you can fly as fast as you want, but it can be very scary, in fact. So if for those of you who have VR, if you've never done Air Car, it's either dirt cheap or free. I can't remember now, but they've upgraded it, and I just got into the new version of it just a couple weeks ago, and man, I was like, this is ridiculous how good this game looks. And the game's got to be at least 3 or 4 years old, but they've enhanced it, and it looks really, really good.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting. No, I played a bit of Skyrim, a bit of Fallout. Did
Yes, yes.
Super Hot as well. I really like
Super hot, yeah.
I really like Skyrim though. Like Skyrim is a game where I don't feel a desire to ever come out of. Like I
Yeah,
put the headset
just go
on.
into the world.
I'm in the fantasy world. I got my lightning bolts coming in my hands and swords and arrows and stuff, and that's a good time.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's an ever growing, constant world that's always there. It's one of the longest playing single player games I can think of, that people still love going back to. It's good.
Well, it's fascinating. It's fascinating what we find like playable. What we enjoy to
Mm-hmm.
do as humans. It's like there is a secret sauce. There is a recipe to a successful game. Um, you have Skyrim and other fantasy titles, but like look at Minecraft.
Mm-hmm.
Minecraft is so simple and it just has
Mm-hmm.
these kind of core elements to it that really sticks everything together.
Mm-hmm.
Fallout was cool too. The thing about Fallout is that it's got so much like art style and it has like character development and I don't know, lots of script writing and stuff. It seems like Fallout's a lot more complicated than
Mm-hmm.
Skyrim, but it's
Yeah.
good VR titles.
Well, Skyrim is definitely where you can, and I mean, you can do a little bit of this in Fallout, but because Fallout does have the story behind it, there is some aspect of linear to it, where, like you said, in Skyrim, it's just, you can do whatever you want to go. You take whatever path you want to take. You can hang out in whatever town you want to hang out in, and the world is so big. Not to mention all the mods and things that people have been doing over the years to keep it fresh. It's a great world to play in and stay in, for that matter.
Yeah, I love the mods. Let me
Mm-hmm.
ask you, what's your video game resume? What games have you played throughout your life? Well, at least the notable ones,
You're going to embarrass me. Oh my
Yeah, a little
God.
bit.
Jokingly, I was just talking with some friends today because, as you know, Microsoft Flight Simulator, the new one, is about to come
Ooh,
out, and people have been
yeah.
talking about that and the realism of it.
Oh
I
yeah.
was playing when there was Microsoft Simulator 1.0.
Okay.
So
Wow.
that tells you how far back. And I
Yeah.
go further back than that, to be honest with you. Um, for me, video games for me started with a game called, which some people will probably, if you're old enough to remember, is a game called Zork. It was made by a game company called Infocom. And Zork at that time, this is before video games we considered it a video game because it was played on a computer. but there were no graphics, is what we would call it. All the time they would use is dollar signs and asterisks and create a map. And even for Zork, that wasn't the case. With Zork, all you got was it started and it said something like you're standing on a road near a mailbox, and that was it.
I love that stuff. It's like
And at that point, you would say something like "look around," and then it would tell you you see trees to the north, you see a path to the south, and you see a house to the east. And then you'd say go east. And so that was my introduction to early personal computer games. I go back further than that to TV when there was nothing but Pong, but that was actually, as far as fantasy goes, that also led to what would lead me ultimately to games like Dungeons and Dragons, both tabletop and video, to Ultima, starting out with something like Zork. It entered me, as you mentioned, it kind of took me into the area of imagination because you didn't have a computer screen to show you what you were looking at. So it was all in your head. It was all based upon story. It was based upon if you had a dungeon master, what they read to you. It was if you probably remember this in the Ultima games when you would buy them, you'd open them up and there would be all types of trinkets. There'd be a map in there made of cloth. There'd be all these tangible items that made you feel like it was taking you into those worlds. Um, so I would, if I had to leap and bound beyond that, I'd say I played everything from Flight Simulator all the way to Space Shuttle, all the way to Space Invaders in the arcade. I mean, it can go on and on and on as far as games, but I would say the ones that have been most influential that I played were, and this probably sound weird to a lot of people, are EA games, but I'm talking about the early EA games. When EA first came out, they were like the bad boys of video game development. When you would get the games, they would come in a square, look like almost like an album cover, like a double album, and the disc would be inside, and the other half would have the manual. But they would something that was different that they would do is that on the back or inside, they would show a picture of the developers. So if you were the developer of the game, Segellion, they would have you just like how you are dressed right now. If that's what you were into, they'd have you dressed like that, and they would give a bio and tell people about that developer and why they decided to develop that game. And that was the first time I had seen insight into game development, where a company was not only just proud of the game it made, but also highlighting the developers that created the game. And so that stuck with me too. Um, then we get into other games that came on later that were dungeon games, all types of dungeon crawlers, Diablo, all those other games that came up. Um, and then I got introduced into, after we got through the dungeon stuff and fantasy stuff, it ended up moving into space. And I would have to say, when it came to space, and I'm trying to make sure I say the right thing here, the thing I was probably, other than the games like you mentioned earlier, like Star Wars X-Wing and things like that, it would have to be those games that came out that LucasArts made, because obviously Star Wars was a big influence on the industry too. So when LucasArts started putting out games like Dark Forces, Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, all those games all of a sudden became, something that drew me in because I was into the whole Star Wars story. And then the game that definitely, even though I was still a little bit of dungeony doing dungeon stuff, I started hearing about EverQuest, which people called Evercrack back in the day. Got into Ultima and EverQuest a little bit,
yeah.
and then the big one came out, and that was Star Wars Galaxies.
Mm.
Star Wars Galaxies is the one that really uh, drew me in. EverQuest did to a certain degree, and EverQuest 2 did. But when Star Wars came out, because the lore in the world was so, as you mentioned, it was so familiar. We are all very much aware of who Jabba the Hutt was and who Boba Fett was and who Yoda was. It was so easy to step into that world. Not to mention, at that time, the graphics seemed very cutting edge. The music of John Williams drew you in
Ah,
automatically
so
because it was no
true.
different than what you heard, in the movies. And so that one, I probably stayed in it from when it hit the stores and came out all the way until it went into the new player experience. And when they got there, that's when I abandoned it. I'd invested so much time and energy and effort into the earlier game when you could have 33 careers. When they reduced it down to 6 careers, I was like, okay, the game shifted too much for me. So that was probably the biggest influence that I had as far as MMO gaming, would probably have been Star Wars Galaxies.
That's cool. Hey, you know what? Of all the people I've talked to, I don't think I've met a person who's like, "Yep, Star Wars Galaxies is the big thing for me."
Mm.
Because I mean, Ultima Online, I think, was the big thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I did
Yeah.
SWG as well because I kind of felt like it was a natural progression. Like you would,
Mm-hmm.
I think there was like a handful of developers that went from the UO team to work on the
Mm-hmm.
SWG team.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're two different companies, but yeah, it's complicated, right?
Yep.
And and yeah, I mean, I vividly remember moments in SWG. Well, I met a girl in SWG. That's the thing. So like, we
Oh
had all of
wow.
these moments. We shared the whole SWG experience together.
Experience. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, people listen in SWG. People got married. They
yep.
bought houses together. They did all types of stuff. Right. I mean, it was something about stepping into that world that was very real for people. And I wish I could tell you how many, probably thousands of hours that I spent in that, to a point where I had an org of like 200 people. And I was just joking. I think when you came on the show, I was talking about how there was a guy who I hired who made all of our uniforms. You know, paid for 200 sets of uniforms from this guy. I mean, it was great to be in that world. I loved it. I loved it.
Well, the thing about the SWG world, at least from my experience, was that UO2 was canceled, and
Mm-hmm.
like that was the big push. We were going to
Yep.
get high fidelity, third person perspective, 3D models, beautiful scenery,
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff, double the land mass that we currently had.
Right.
And then that got scrapped because EA decided to just throw anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And then SWG came out and it promised all of these things. So we got
Mm-hmm.
there and we were like, "Whoa, this is what it could have been like." And that's it. The
Yeah.
rest is history.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now here in Star Citizen, we're still waiting for the same crap, right? That SWG promise.
That's
So
true. That's true. I guess we could say each one was a building block to the next one, maybe, you
that's
know,
true. Yeah.
but you're right. We are looking for some of the same things that we were looking for in those games. You're right.
Well, that's like we're just as human beings, like we're just looking for certain elements in a gaming environment. I don't even know
Mm-hmm.
what those are. Probably for game developers, I hope, who have like academia in this, they would know what these things are. But I don't know. But certain things certainly have a hold on you, don't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. It's good stuff.
Yeah, well, I didn't know you played SWG. I didn't know you played UO. I don't think we've ever had that discussion before. What server
Mm-hmm.
did you used to play on in SWG?
Ooh, oh, Segellion. There's no way I could remember that
Oh,
now. Oh
okay.
God,
I was on
it's so buried.
Starsight.
The only reason why it's buried that bad is because that's buried on top of all the years I played in Eve afterward. So,
Mm, I
so,
see.
so I honestly couldn't even tell you which server it was at this point. All I could tell you was is that I had multiple homes. My biggest one was on Naboo. I loved being on Naboo. And I
Yeah.
had farms, I had homes, I had all types of stuff in that game. Again, the amount of time that was vested in it. Actually, we had actually built our own city in the game where my org was. So it was ridiculous. Not to mention I can't imagine how many hundreds of hours I spent just decorating my house. I'm a terrible person when it comes to decorating and clothing. I hate to say that,
Oh no, no, I truly appreciate those
but
people because I never take the time to it. I used to like I had a roommate who like a real life roommate
uh-huh.
who that's all he did was just decorate houses in SWG and
Mm-hmm.
that's what he did. And he did the same
Yep.
thing in UO as well. So
Wow.
I nothing but appreciate. I don't have the patience for that. I do have to say though, like Naboo is I don't know. There's something about it. I lived on Naboo. That was pretty much. I never left Naboo really.
Mm.
I had a girl there, and
Mm-hmm.
wife and kids, and
Yep.
a house, and responsibilities, and a job. So I wasn't gonna go anywhere. Are you kidding? And it was beautiful. And I remember they had fireworks like every weekend.
Yes. Yes.
It
Yes.
wasn't at Theed. It was at another city. It's a smaller city, but they had fireworks, and we
They
always
would do
used
the
to go out for the
fireworks. Yep.
fireworks. Yeah.
That was good stuff. That was good stuff. You might make me start crying in a minute, so
I
don't lead us
know,
down
right?
that
It's
subject
real.
too
But you know
long.
what's funny? I was there's a couple other people who I talked to who got into SWG, and we exchanged screenshots every once in a while, and it doesn't age well. Like our
Mm,
beautiful memories of it
yeah.
are long gone.
Yeah, I've got some still shots that I took, and I went back and I look at them fondly because I remember it. But boy, when you look at it, you see the pixelation.
Yep.
And even when I've gone and watched a few people in YouTube, I know they have some servers where people are still playing it, and they've tried to do some enhancements to it. I hate to say it, but you don't even want to put this idea out on the water. But if they were to go back and redo that game and just bring it up to date, it would be amazing.
Oh, 100%.
It would be amazing, you know. And I don't know why they didn't think of that because the response of people playing it was so good, and it was very obvious of why people stopped playing it. So Star Wars as a franchise, if they were to allow that world to be created with the tech that's available now, it would be an amazing place to play.
It's really like an addiction, and like
Mm-hmm.
we got that first taste of it in SWG, and in my opinion, I haven't had it since, and I still crave it. So I think that one of the reasons why I cling so hard onto Star Citizen is like I need that drug. It's like, ah, give me Theed Palace again. Give me those
Yeah,
waterfalls we used to have, like
yeah,
ah.
yeah, yeah. I remember the first time. Did you remember the first time getting on a ship in Galaxies when they got jumped to light speed? Do you remember ever going on a
Oh
ship?
yeah,
Try
yeah. Well, I
that
used
was amazing.
I used to have the scout ship, and I never
Yes.
I never got outside of that. It was like a single seater because okay, my
Yep.
character name in Star Wars Galaxies was Spike Spiegel.
Okay.
So I was like one of those kind of cloud strife people who just rip off something else. So I had
Okay.
this, the scout ship, and it was a single seater. It was a piece of junk, and that was kind of like my swordfish from Cowboy
Yeah.
Bebop. And that's all I did. I never
It
got
got you.
higher than that at
That's
all.
okay. It got you from here to there. I never got the one. Everybody wanted the one that was like they looked like the Millennium Falcon a little bit. I never did get that far. I
Yeah.
did get the one that was the yacht, and I liked
Oh,
that because your friends could come on there with you, and that
yeah.
was what was really cool about it. You kind of had that social dynamic on the ship.
It was kind of a rare ship too, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool.
But yeah, that was like you said, that was kind of a foretaste and a foreshadowing of where we're trying to go now.
Oh,
It
I hope
definitely
so.
was, because the social dynamic was a huge factor in that game. Yeah, you could do solo stuff, but there was so much of it that was social. You know.
Yeah, I think that really made it for me. It had so many social features. I
Hmm.
really hope we can see more of that. But I don't want to spend the entire time theory crafting. But
Hmm.
Fastcart did want to ask you if how far you made it to Jedi before they changed SWG.
That's the other thing that would have probably got me upset. I think it was like level like if you remember back then, in order to reach Jedi, you had to go through all the careers at some point,
Yeah.
and I think I had probably done like 29 or 30 out of the
Oh
33,
man,
so I didn't make it.
it was so hard to get Jedi, and I appreciate it because like getting Jedi was basically impossible. I
Yeah,
mean,
it
you got
was
to be
difficult.
really dedicated. And then
Hmm.
NGE came out, and then oh, everyone can be a Jedi now. You know what
What a
was really
slap in the
cool?
face that
Do
was.
you remember how you couldn't speak to a Wookiee unless you went to a translator or you learned how to speak Wookiee?
That's right. That's right.
Man, that was so cool.
That was cool. It was very cool. Yeah.
If there's any CIG people out there listening, take notes.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. You're right, Fast Card. It is Fast Hearts. That's why I don't like to talk about it too much. I'll
Yeah,
start crying.
sorry about that. My bad. Well, let me just change gears and ask
Sure.
you how your COVID experience has been because I like to know, I don't talk to lots of real humans, so I
Hmm.
don't know. What's it been like for you?
For me, it hasn't been too bad. Actually, my family, we think we actually contracted it in the early stage.
Yeah.
In the States here, it really became big news about March, but everyone in my home got sick in January. I didn't get bad. I didn't get really, really bad, but I got enough that I thought I had the flu. Um, and then about maybe a month later, everyone else in my house started getting sick. Now I don't know if I got it or not because it could have been the flu, but the one symptom I did have was I did have a little bit of respiratory issue, and at that point, I kind of took it that maybe there's something else going on. But at the time, it wasn't being publicized here in the states, um, and so the reason why I think that maybe it did happen is that my two daughters, both one of the symptoms is that sometimes you lose your taste, and that doesn't happen with the flu usually, and so that did happen with both of them.
Weird.
And so anyway, we kind of wrote it out because by the time they got it, that's when they were starting to do the quarantines and people started realizing that you needed to stay home. I live in Chicago in the States, in Illinois, and so we were very restrictive here. Our mayor and our governor of our state really restricted what people could do, to the point where we even had a curfew where from 9 p.m. till 6 a.m. you had to be inside. Um, Obviously, a lot of businesses closed, things of that nature. Um, I did have one close encounter. I did have some friends that I lost due to COVID. Some people, I think about about 4 to 5 people that I know died from COVID. I have
Wow.
several people who contracted it, several people who I know contracted it but survived it.
Wow.
My brother ended up getting it and he survived it. And I was really concerned about him because he has COPD, so it's already a
Wow.
respiratory issue for him, but he survived it. Um, so as far as COVID goes, just taking it seriously, and just because I know people who got it, and I know people who died from it. Um, as far as the restrictions and things like that, I see it as that it could have been a lot worse. Um, this was a pandemic, and it was something that we hadn't seen before. Um, I'm a little frustrated because I think that I'm an old guy. Let's just say that And I've seen a lot of things and done a lot of things, and I think my value on life at this stage is at a very high level. Life is very, very important to me, and the lives of other people are very important to me, not just my own. And when I see people who are living for the moment, or say things to me like, I have to go to the bar, or I have to go to the local restaurant, or I can't wait. And at the same time, I know people who died who don't have that privilege, and people who they're so worried about self and not worried about the whole, meaning everyone. I think there are times when, as a country, as people, we have to put ourselves to the side, and be willing to do some sacrificing. And I think we're kind of growing up in an age, at least in our country. I'm going to speak about my country. We have such a big push on individuality and freedom that we forget that those freedoms came because of what we did collectively. And when people start to only think about themselves, or say you do you and I do me, and don't worry about it, but at the same time what you do can impact me, then you're messing with my freedoms and your own freedoms for that matter. So it's very frustrating to see what's going on in our country right now, where numbers are going up, particularly in states who either wanted to go back to work quickly. um, I understand the need for people to work and have, trust me, I get it. I really do. But you have to ask yourself, what is the cost? I'm very fearful of what's happening with our numbers in the States. I said, some of my friends have heard me say this, that I wouldn't be surprised if we hit 250,000 deaths by the end of the year, where the flu in the United States normally runs between 30 and 65,000 people a year. This is looking at about 250,000, and we're already at over 150 now. I'm guessing we're going to be at 250, and we still have influenza coming back as usual in the
Right.
fall.
Yeah.
So we don't know what's going to happen, if this particular virus is going to resurrect itself because we're going back into the wintertime, if influenza is going to be better or worse than it normally is. So I've always felt that this is the summertime. This is the time for us to get it right, to lower the numbers as much as possible. But if folks want to live the way they want to live, I just don't know what's going to happen. So, but I'm okay. I think it could be worse. There's some places that had total lockdowns where you couldn't go anywhere and you couldn't do anything and you had to stay inside all the time. We still had liberties here and freedoms here, and people have taken that for granted. And so we'll see. I don't want to be a downer, but I'm just sharing the reality of how I feel about it.
No, man. I think I always ask that question, and I think you gave me the most real answer
Mm-hmm.
out there. These three people, who passed away from it, did they have any pre-existing conditions or
Oh,
no?
nope. They got the bug, and I think, and these were early in when they came out, and I think a lot of, if you look at the chart, you'll notice that back in March and May was when most of the deaths happened here in the States. And that's because that was during the period of time when we were still trying to figure things out, not just about the fact of whether we should wear masks and all that stuff. That was one factor. But I think that because we were coming out of the flu season in the States, and so people are used to getting sick, getting a little cough, getting a runny nose, or getting a fever. And quite often it wasn't until people felt really bad, or until they started realizing they were having problems breathing, that they would go into the hospital. And for many of them, when they would get there, as soon as they get in there, they'd have to put them on a respirator right away, because at this point, one of the complications to COVID is that when you can't breathe and get enough oxygen into your system, your other organs start to become affected. And so your liver and your kidneys, other things start to break down, and you start having problems. And that's where death ends up coming from, your lungs and other stuff. So by that time, they said at that point, they said when people came in, it was a 50-50 chance. If you get on a respirator, it's a 50-50. You may
Yeah,
walk
I
away
heard
from it,
that.
you may not. And so many of the people that I knew that passed away, it was in the much earlier days when it first happened, those first couple months. After that, it seems like people have been a little bit more sensitive to when they're not feeling well, to stay home, or when they're not feeling well, to go into the hospital, or as now, they can go get tested, you know.
Well, that's wild, man. And I gotta say,
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty, I don't know, alarming, but strange, but not strange. How it seems like the older you get, the more you value life. The less life you have, the more you want it. You young people, they don't really care. They're like, I have plenty of life. It's like, imagine if you're a millionaire or something. It's like, I got plenty of money. What do I care? Let
Yeah.
me just throw it
Yeah.
all over the place. As you get older, you lose the money, and
Yeah.
eventually you only got $10 left. You're like, okay, I have to watch every quarter now. That's
That's
wild,
true.
though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, well, I appreciate that
Yeah.
that story. Geez, I wish you the best. And I don't
Thank you.
know anybody else. So you're I
But
think
wait,
you're.
before you ask me,
Mhm.
how's it going up there with you guys? That's another question I should ask on the other side of the border. How are you guys doing?
It's weird, man. And like you're welcome to criticize this, but from my perspective, it seems like a giant conspiracy theory.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have free healthcare here, right?
Right.
But
Right.
the government is very restrictive about that. So they
Hmm.
haven't opened up testing in most parts of Canada. In some parts of Canada, you can get testing, but most parts of Canada, you can't, unless you're
Wow.
on death's door, basically. Like you have to have all the conditions
Wow.
like respiratory distress, and then
Hmm.
or you're like a VIP, you know, you're
Right.
like
Right.
a politician or you're dealing with the public sector, so you have to
Hmm.
get tested. But we're really not getting tested overall, so we don't really know much about that.
Wow.
It's weird. It's weird. And you know, there's a lot of kind of dancing around politics as well. We have
Hmm.
a very
Hmm.
large kind of Chinese population, Asian population in Canada.
Hmm.
There's not a
Hmm.
lot like Canadian. Canada takes in a lot of foreign
Right. Right.
people
Right.
because they have bigger economies than we do. We have a pretty small economy as a country,
Right.
so we bring in lots of other people,
Hmm.
and we kind of dance around a lot of racial subjects because of that. So we
Hmm.
don't like to talk about a lot of these things.
Hmm.
Um, but January, February was a really interesting time in Canada. I thought, yeah,
Hmm.
lots of cover-ups. It seemed
That is
like I don't know.
surprising. Wow. No, no criticism there. I mean, I hate to say it, but I think no matter where you are, it's unfortunate that politics have anything to do with when it comes to people's the
Isn't that
public health.
true?
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just terrible that we still have to deal with the politics of stuff when people are getting sick or dying. It's terrible.
And I remember back in February on a stream, and I was talking to other people in Vancouver about this, and I'm like, is COVID a political subject back in February? And like, it
Hmm.
just seems like, what was the other infection we had back in 2010? There was another thing that kind of popped up but went away. Uh,
H1N1.
that's what it was, H1N1. Yeah,
Hmm.
but it came up and went away. It was never a political subject, and I'm like,
Hmm.
COVID really seems like a political subject right now. Nobody's really
Hmm.
talking about it
Yeah.
to much severity, but
Wow.
I
Well,
don't know.
thanks for sharing that. I didn't know that.
It's
Wow.
wild. And that's the biggest source of anxiety, I think, for me is like, I just don't know who to trust. Well, I think now, after it being 8 months in or whatever, I don't trust anybody. I don't trust any
Hmm.
news. And I live in Star Citizen, and every day in Star Citizen is bright and beautiful and the sanest place on the planet.
It's a lot more sane than it is out here. That's for sure.
Yes. And I remember that when we have days like today where the roadmap isn't what we want it to be and the ISCs aren't as voluptuous as we hope. So
Mm.
I just remember this is a good place to be right now. Yeah. So you're quite a talk show aficionado, I would say. Would you say that?
Mm. I
Hmm.
don't know. I don't know about that. I watch a lot of them, but
You
that's
watch a lot? What's your
about
favorite
it. I
talk
watch
show?
quite a few.
What's your favorite talk show?
Who do I enjoy watching? Um, there are so many shows that are out there now. Um, I mean, you've been around for a little while now, and you know that there are a lot of people who've come and gone, right? Um, as far as group talk shows, there's some I try to watch live, and then there's other ones I try to catch during the week. Like if I'm riding or working or doing something, I'll have them on. Yacht Club, which comes on Wednesday nights. That's Joe Run's group. I usually try to watch them, mostly because they come on very late. They come on about 9 p.m. my time, and they usually wrap around 12 or 1. And usually that's the time in the evening when I'm working at the computer and trying to do stuff. And so I can kind of have them on and be watching them live. I try to squeeze in Astropub when I can, but if I don't catch him with interviews, then I try to make sure that I catch him, at some point during the day. I'll play them because he puts his stuff on YouTube. Same thing with Relay. I try to check in with Relay. My friend Fastcart, when he's on, I try to be on there to support him. But that's another show that I'll sometimes have to catch because they're on Saturdays in the afternoon, and usually that's a tough time for me because I do care for my mom. Um, let's see. I'm trying to think of who else's talk shows. Of course, you, because I knew about your show, and you and I had already been talking about some of the episodes that you had done. Let me see. As far as talk shows, hmm. That's really about it, because some of the other ones are individual folks. You know, like people like Eradicator or DG360. Those are guys that just put out their YouTube. They don't often. I don't usually try to catch them live. Even Board Gamer, even though I know he does a live show on YouTube, I usually just try to catch up with his show. You know, once it's been produced. Um, those are pretty much it as far as the talk shows that I keep up with now. I think. Um, Still keep an eye. I try to watch Gray Haired Gamer, but I haven't been watching him much recently because his schedule changed. At least I think it did, or either I'm just forgotten his time. But those a lot of those people are the people who've been around for quite a while now, you know, in Star Citizen and the universe. And then of course there's just watching regular content creators on Twitch that are playing from time to time.
One thing that I appreciated about you originally was that we kind of started the talk show around the same time. Well, it was like a COVID project, in my honest opinion. It's like, oh, we got this time, we might as well.
In a way, I didn't think about it that way, but in a way, you're right. Maybe that was what kind of inspired it because I had a little bit more time to think about some stuff. That
Yeah.
might have been it. Yeah.
Well, a lot of people started off with or started some COVID projects, which I thought were
Mm-hmm.
pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But you've stuck with it now. You're on episode 22 now, I think, of your show. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, you're remembering better than me. Yeah. Yeah, I think it is 22 now. Yeah, we started the first week in March, and yeah, I think we're on 22. Yeah,
How's it been? How do you like it?
it's been fun. It's been fun. It's a little different. The format is a little bit different. When I was doing a show previous to this one called Test Zone, and when we did Test Zone, it was not a public show per se. I mean, even though we did do it on Twitch, we didn't do advertising to the community. It was really designed to be something that was internal for Test Squadron, and the idea was to be able to bring on some people who were part of Test Squadron from time to time and talk to them, kind of like a little internal TV show for the org, basically. And I did that for about a year and a half, if I'm not mistaken. It was quite a while. And I did that with a good friend of mine, Cosmic Trader and Archie Falcon. They helped me out with that. And but after a while, I was getting a little burnt out. I had some personal issues going on with my mom and just some other stuff, and so I needed to take a break. Just because the in order to do a show like that, I had to do a lot more content creating. It wasn't just the opportunity just to sit down and talk, but I often did a lot of videos and background stuff, and that just took a lot of time to do. And I think at the time I was probably still working. I think, and so I think I was still working. I can't even remember now. But anyway, I retired 4 years ago, and so this one was a little bit different. I took a break, and this time I brought on a larger crew of people so that so much of it could be spread out a little bit more. I didn't want to have to put the dependency on everyone, or just on a couple people, I should say. So having a group of people or a team of people for a pool of talent is much easier. And it also makes it easier for them because many of them are content creators on their own. They're already producing their own shows. And so I don't want to do anything that makes it burdensome for them. And at the same time, I don't want it burdensome for me. So we've taken a little bit different approach. And I think that 2 years ago, the game was in a different place. That was another factor too. Um, right now, the game is much more tangible in the sense of people understanding what Star Citizen is about. Where 2 years ago, people were still, unless you've been around for a long time, I think it was kind of still difficult for some people to grasp Star Citizen. But now I think there's a little bit more understanding of it from both within the community and outside the community. If you remember 2, 3 years ago, folks were still saying the word scam. You don't hear that too much anymore now. There's a little bit more credibility to the project. And so it's been fun doing the project with the folks that I work with. I work a great team of people. Each one of them has their own level of experience in Star Citizen as well as in video gaming in general. Some of them are content creators, and some of them are people who, they just love the game. They're just backers. I've got I got people like Kimmy65. Kimmy does his own show. Kimmy's really good in the sense of tech and lore. He has a real passion for. He's probably read all the lore stuff in the game, and he knows about all the planets and the moons, and he knows all the backstories. He even knows all the people that work at CIG, which blows my mind. We'll be watching a video, and he'll name people on the stage and say, "That's so and so's brother, who's related to so and so, who works over in this department." I'm like, "Whoa!" But he knows that stuff, and that's great because he brings that to the table. We've got Green Eyed Gal who's on the show. She's been in the game for about a year. She's got video game experience, but as far as a space sim and going into this, it's a different thing for her. So she's kind of like the fresh eyes in the group, and she's not the one who's kind of salty
Uh,
from being in here
you
for
need
the
that.
last 8 years.
You need that. That's so
Yeah,
important.
Fast Cart's a staple, in the community. Everybody knows he's one of the ambassadors for Star Citizen, and very very well liked by people in the community. He helps tremendously in the sense of moderation and helping me as a producer. I can bounce things off of him, and he gives it to me like it is. And he also knows the heartbeat of the community a little bit more, even more than I do. And so he brings that to the table. And then I've got people like Seer the sixth, who does his own videos. And Seer's got military background. He loves the game. He's really into support, things of that nature. I've got 10th Sigma, who is an accountant who loves the idea of anything to do with making money in Star Citizen. And he's also part of the night crew, if I'm not mistaken,
Yep.
10th Sigma.
I'm like, I know that name.
And then who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting somebody. Who am I forgetting, Fast Cart? I know I'm forgetting somebody, but, or maybe I'm just forgetting me. Oh, and Dig That 32. Dig That produces the the most awesome how to play Star Citizen
Yes, he does.
videos that
Yeah.
I've seen.
I was
He
watching
has a
some of his videos. They're really good.
Yes, he has this dynamic personality that's it just comes off in an entirely different way. His videos are usually very short, but they're incredibly helpful videos. And so we've got him out there. So yeah, we've got just a good group of people. Yeah, just got a good. I said Kimmy first, Fast Card. You were sleeping. So but we've got a good group of people, and looking to expand that group as well. As you know, that the group is entirely made up of people of color. And that's because we had just been making relationships with these people over the years. I met Fastcart back in 2016. And weirdly enough, he had been thinking about doing a show very similar. When I talked to him, he was the first person I spoke to. And he was like, I was thinking about doing something like that too. And I'm like, well, maybe this is, the stars aligning and let's talk about it. And so we just decided to do something that was a little bit different, but also something that was also very open and inviting other folks to come onto our show. And we've had great responses. People like you. We've had people like Paul Shelley, Astropub, come on the show. We've had Montoya from Test Squadron. We've got Eris coming up from Relay coming on board pretty soon. I mean, we've had just really great people who've been supporting us and really there to cheer for us and tweet for us and tell people, hey, you guys need to check these guys out. Or Joe Run, who's got on Yacht Club at night and said, hey, you guys need to check out Soul Citizens. We just had really good support since we've started. It's been really, really nice.
I wish I could have someone tweet for me. I have like a disability when it comes to tweeting. I don't know. Every time I proofread it 2 or 3 times, and
Mm-hmm.
as soon as I hit that send button, I see what I've done
You see
wrong.
something that you did.
It's like
No, it's not
ah.
you. It's not you. Trust me. What it is that when you're the producer, you have so many things on your mind that it is so easy to miss that. Because I can't tell you how many times I've had to delete a tweet because I forgot something, put something in wrong, misspelled. I'm like, how did I miss that?
Yeah,
Do,
right.
let me ask you a question. And this is something Fastcard hooked me up with. Do you use TweetDeck?
We'll use Sendable, which is
You use
another
Sendable. Okay, it's
it's
very
another
similar.
software
Okay.
like that.
Because that's the cool thing that's taken some pressure off of me is using TweetDeck now. Because before I was trying to remember when to send stuff and blah blah blah.
Mm.
He said, Griff, you need to use TweetDeck. So now I schedule all that stuff out on Sunday for the entire week,
Oh, that's a
and I
smart way to do
never
it.
have to come back to it again. So I love using that. If yours does that, then great. I would just say spend a day setting it up, and then you don't have to be bothered with it again.
I usually do that for the Fridays, so I schedule it on Friday
Ah,
morning. But the thing is,
okay.
it didn't work today, and I'm like, well, that's
Oh
great.
no.
That's great. It's
Well,
just
your
the
your
way it
tweet
is.
yesterday went out because I got that one.
That's
The
supposed to
one went
go out
out.
on Wednesday, by the way.
Well, yeah, you did say you were going to do it on Wednesday, but it did go out yesterday.
it
I mean, it
it
went
was
out.
a
Yeah,
success, and there were no typos. It was a good day. It was a victory.
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So let me ask you, what's something that you work towards to be better for your talk shows? Like, you finish a talk show off, and you're like, oh, I wish I did this or this. What's something you're continuing to evolve?
Right now it's interesting because of COVID. Um, a lot of things have changed in the way people watch media, right? Where people before had their daily lives and they were out in the street and they were doing things and going to restaurants and bars and meeting and having a social dynamic there. Because of people having to be inside, it has brought them obviously to social media in a much bigger way. But it has also inundated us to a certain degree. I can't tell you, there are days when I may have 4, 5 Zoom calls, each one of them being anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour per day. So people are in front of their computers much more than they used to be. Um, and so now sitting down and watching something on the computer is not like it was a few months back. They're getting hit with it so much. My concern is that whatever we produce is something that people feel like they want to stay and watch it. I'm very careful about um, time on our show. I always envision our show being about 90 minutes, maybe a little bit more than that. We've been averaging now somewhere between 90 minutes and 2 hours. But when we get near the 2 hour mark, I get really nervous. I'm always looking at the bar on Twitch to see whether people are coming and going. And fortunately, for that 90 minutes to 2 hours, our scale is always moving upward. I never see it slope.
That's good.
It's always doing this. But I'm looking for it to do that because with Star Citizen, you can talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. You can talk about it till 3 in the morning, 5 in the morning, and you know, there's a point where you can lose the audience because it's not like we're the only ones. There are dozens of other shows out there sharing good information about Star Citizen, and so you're already competing. Our show's on Sunday, right? So by the time our show comes on Sunday, I know that Captain Richard has talked about it. I know you've talked about it. I know that Astropub has talked about it. I know that Eradicator has put out 5 videos during that day to talk about it. Board Gamer has put out 3 days worth of videos to talk about it. So all these people have talked about what has happened from Thursday through Sunday. So when Sunday gets here, the question becomes, okay, now what are you going to talk about when people have to go to work tomorrow? And so we have to take a different approach. And our approach has been more of taking on topical discussions that are not contingent upon what happened during that week. And we can talk about, if we want to, for example, talk, it's like when you came on, we can talk about role playing in Star Citizen. Well, that doesn't have anything to do with what was on Inside Star Citizen or, calling all devs. So we can have that conversation and still keep the attention of the community. And so I want to remain relevant in the sense of what is going on currently. I want to be able to bring people up to date who maybe just got into the game within the last year or two. So that's why sometimes we'll go back and watch a Citizen Con from way back when. And we've had people who've sat in with us and told us that I've never seen this particular Citizen Con. I didn't know this was out there. And they learn a little bit more about where we came from. But at the same time, I also want to be able to talk about Theaters of War, which is coming up, or I want to talk about 4.0. So it's just trying to strike that balance that keeps the audience saying, hey, here's a show that's a little different. It's not like the other ones, even though it is a talk show. And that, for a Sunday evening, if they're willing to spend their evening, which is for most people today, when people are trying to regroup and get themselves ready to go to work, they can feel like they can sit there and watch the show and enjoy it and say, hey, this was pretty cool. And that's pretty much my objective for when we do that show on Sundays.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, I went back while I watched one of your other episodes. I didn't realize they're all behind Test Squadron, so you don't actually publish them publicly. You have to be a test member to see a lot of your older content. Is that right?
Well, no, they are
They
published.
are published.
The Test Zone, you can find. Oh, they're on YouTube. Oh yeah, absolutely. They're on YouTube. But I'm just saying, when I did it internally, I just didn't market it in a public way.
I see.
Our people that were in the org knew that we were doing the show, and so of course some people outside saw it, But this one is definitely it's separate from Test. It's its own show, And this one we do try to get the word out on this one. We publish on Reddit and we publish on Twitter and all that good stuff.
Does Test help you a lot with that kind of thing? There's like a
The
support
members, the
structure.
members are
Yeah.
supportive. We don't really, even though Test does have its own. Right, matter of fact, Test right now is in the process of restarting its Test Gaming. We do have certain members of Test that are well-known, content creators. Captain Richard, for example, is a member of Test. Meyer is a member of Test, and they've been a part of the Test gaming community for a while. I haven't really thought about whether to wrap Soul Citizens into that, mostly because 60% or 70% of the people in Soul Citizens are Test members, but I have a few that aren't, and I don't necessarily want to put them under that as well. I'm pretty comfortable with just kind of keeping Soul Citizens out there, but I will say that members in Test who do know about our show are very supportive. They come in and sit in on the show, and I'll come to Test's Discord. They'll say, Griff, that was a great show, we watched it, blah blah blah. So we do get support from them, and as I mentioned, Montoya was even a guest on our show. So yeah, we've gotten good support from
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I want to get Montoya one of these days. If you can hook me up,
him.
that would be pretty sweet. I
Oh
mentioned
yeah,
that to a couple other people too. I'm like, get me Montoya.
I'm sure he'd be happy to come on. Montoya, I know you will be happy to come on this show.
There you go. I the reason I asked so much about Test, I'm just curious about it. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
anything about it really. Like I know a handful of people who are in it, but I can't imagine what it must be like to be in such a massive with a massive group of people. I figured that there's like an HR department or something like that, and it's the HR or marketing department. You have to clear your talk show with the marketing department first. Is that how it works? How does it work?
No, it doesn't work like that. Believe it or not, test structure is pretty fluid and pretty open. I've actually learned a lot about running an org that size. I've run orgs and known about smaller orgs, but an org that size, you're right, is very intimidating. But what I have found out is that Montoya has a certain philosophy about how the org works. He does have a staff of folks that have been with him for quite a while. They've been the people who helped formed it and helped grow it over the years. Um, but and this kind of made sense when he said it to me. He said, when you think about a game like Star Citizen, there's some comparisons to Eve with this, so bear with me. When you think about a game like Star Citizen, the question becomes how many people, even if you have 10,000 people, how many people are going to be online at any given time, right? Globally, how many people are going to be online? And so the question becomes that even if you have 10,000 people, if you have 2,000 people or 1,000 people who are online out of that number, that's a decent amount of people for a large org that are all on at one time. Now that's down the road because you and I both know nobody has 1,000 people in their org online right
Yeah,
now. The servers don't even accommodate it,
that's
right?
right. Yeah.
But he's speaking down the road that is when having a large org will be beneficial. Right now, if you go on our Discord can range from anywhere from 2 people being in there to 30 people being there to 40 or 50. And we have multiple channels, mind you. There may be, I don't know, 100 people in there at any given time at the most. And that's usually like maybe when there's a big announcement or for example, when if there's a Citizen Con and it's someplace else. Well, yeah, of course, the Discord lights up with does a couple hundred people. But what his point is that the people are going to be playing the game 24/7. You're not going to have 10,000 people on between the hours of 5 and 8. Throughout the day, you may have 1,000 people come on and play. If your org is running ships, for example, that are running the large scale ships, they may be running in space 24/7, and you have to rotate crews. That's where the benefits of having a large org come to play. There is no real benefit outside of looking at it from a much more long range and bigger picture. For orgs that don't need to do that, there's no reason to have that many people. In fact, you already know that half the people that are on there, you don't even know if they're going to even come back to the game. They may have signed up and never come back. So even if you get a quarter of those people, that's still a decent amount of people that you could say that are active, and then another percentage of that who actually are on the game playing it. So it's not the big thing that it sounds like. It's great to say you got over 19,000 players. It's a great landmark in the sense of just the gaming industry and saying that you've got that, but it has to be practical in something that works, because if just to have those numbers but you don't have a way for that to work later on, it's just going to be a waste.
Well, it really seems like Test Squadron's kind of a part of the genetic makeup of this game, just because, well, they're influential and they've been around for as long as they have.
Mm-hmm.
I said this to Montoya when we were at CitizenCon, is that like you guys are um, you're like the recruitment officers for this game. Like all the new players are going to be probably more attracted to join Test Squadron compared to any other org out there. So,
No,
if
I think
anything,
that it may seem that way. I'll be honest with you. We do get people who come by, and they'll say we're looking for an org. I've had plenty of these conversations. We want to know a little bit about test, and we tell them. Some join, some don't. But I think that's also because if you go down the org, this is amazing to do. Uh, when you go down the org list and you look at how many orgs are active, even though there are thousands of orgs on the org list on the RSI site, look at how many of them have not been active for the last 3 or 4 years where nothing has happened. And I think that's part of the problem too. I think that it's those orgs that have sustained and been around for a while that draw people. Imperium and some of the other ones, ADI, Test. I mean, that's because just by nature, when people go to the website, you see those first 10, orgs they say are the most whatever active, and that's where people gravitate. But I think once the game comes out, I think you're going to start seeing those smaller orgs start to grow again, and people will start gravitating. And maybe they'll have Test as an affiliate, but they're members at another org. Um, because as more game mechanics kick in and where people want to do specific things, so even though org, I mean, even though Test has divisions for all the different parts of the game, there are some people who are going to want to be in an org that specifies in doing mining, and they don't care about the other stuff, and that's what they want to do. And so I can see people gladly saying, "Hey, I've got these ships. I can contribute it to the game." In Test, we have so many ships. I can play. I could go and Test and play and never have a ship. I don't have to have a ship in Test. There's so many of them,
Yeah.
you know. And but there are other people who do want to be able to fly the ships and do stuff, and they wouldn't be able necessarily to do that in a group setting and Test. They could do it as an individual, but will they be able to say that? I mean, I can't tell you how many Idrises we have. How many do you need, right? How many are you going to take out and fly at any given time? You know. So, but if you've got a smaller org, and they say, hey, we've got one Idris and we've got enough people, they'll be happy to do that. You know. So I think it's going to balance itself out in time.
Do you ever feel like there's a competition between Test Squadron and ADI? Like, what's the relationship between these two orgs? Is there?
No,
No.
if it is, it's probably what people just think. I know for a fact that Montoya has spoken with the leader of ADI. In fact, in 2018, they got together and talked because we were directly right across from each other,
Yeah.
if you remember, because you
Yep.
guys were right next to them.
I was next door.
And yeah, and as far as I know, the relationship is fine. They operate differently than Test. I
Yes, they
think
do.
that ADI
Yeah.
is a bit more structured,
Mm-hmm.
for lack of a better term. Not that Test doesn't have structure, but I mean they're much more structured in the sense of the way they recruit, much more toward when they with their training. Um, and so I think that they have just the way they operate is a little bit differently. Where Test is a little bit more, we've been a little more loosey goosey, for lack of a better
Yeah.
way of putting it, but there is structure there. I don't want to make people think. I know we've kind of had the reputation back in the early days of being the bad boys of the community, and then we were the drunken boys of community, and now we're like the people in rehab and sobering up boys of the community. So we're different, but there's no animosity. It's not like we're like, if you see anybody from ADI, shoot them down. There's nothing like that going on.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that anywhere in Star Citizen actually. I just think it's an interesting dynamic though. But I always consider Test Squadron like it's like a college or something. You go to college
Mm-hmm.
first before you graduate, and then you eventually get a career or something like that. Or you could continue to work at Test. You never know.
Yeah, yeah. No, Katana, that's a very good point. You're right. Big orgs can be the place where you can just kind of get lost, or maybe only certain people rise to the top, the cream of the croppers, and everybody else is kind of forgotten about. And you're absolutely right. That is one of the negatives that can happen in a large org. I can say this about Test, and I've been in Test now been in Test since 2014, I think, something like that. I've been in there for a little while now. Test is very unique in the sense of that people come in brand new and people who've been there for the past 8 years, and they connect with them and they talk with them. It's always open. We don't have rooms where certain people have to go and other people can't access. People play together all the time. You do have the regulars, those people who are just there almost every day. Then you get the people who drop in when there's a patch update, and then there are the people who get salty and mad because they've gotten too many 30,000s and they come back 4 months later, and ask how are things going. We have such a variety of different people that come through in the org. But for now, it is what it is. Test is Test. It's for me, it's one of the better orgs I've ever been in, and I've been in quite a few, and it's probably one of the better ones I've been in.
I find it interesting how you say cream of the crop. Like that's something that happens, and I think it does. I think Captain Richard is a product of that actually, and I didn't
Mm,
realize that until I met him in person. I realized how smart of a person he was.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh my goodness! Like I didn't even feel
Hmm.
comfortable about that. It's like I'm
Yeah,
gonna go
Richard's a
back to
nice
my
guy.
side of the the booth now or whatever. But why do you think
He's
that's a bad thing? Why'd you say that's a bad thing?
No, no, no. I don't mean it in that way. I mean, I'm just saying, for lack of a better term, I guess the term I should have used is that sometimes in orgs you get cliques
I
where
see.
certain people get favored and other people don't. And so I'm just saying in our org, I don't see that. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen because maybe there are other people whose observation that it does, but I'm around there enough. I'm around there. I don't think there's probably not one day I don't stop in Test at the very least. And and they've been pretty equitable to people. But I know in larger orgs, when again, that can't happen. Where certain people are heard, other people are not heard. It's very easy to slip through the cracks. Any organization, I don't care what it is, anything that's large, unless someone is making a very proactive uh, outreach to people, it's very easy to get lost in a large org.
Yeah, I sympathize with what Kittens is saying there. Just talking about that a large org can feel lonely.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of get that. I
Yeah.
mean, I remember living in like a super large city
Mm-hmm.
and just feeling so lonely, but being separated by millions of people or being surrounded by millions of people.
Yeah.
I don't really know how to
Yeah.
combat though. What do you think?
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
solve that problem?
That's a tough one. Just to point the Katan's just point here that he says about when he came and test, he still felt kind of just out there, and it's understandable. I would tell you this, Katan's. I was on the other day, and a guy came in, and this was like 2 in the morning. And this guy popped in, and he's like, "Hey, is anybody here?" And we're like, "Yeah, yeah, we're here. What's up?" And he's like, "Oh man, I'm having a hard time. I'm out here. I lost my job. I this, that. Um, I'm living out here in the rural area. I don't have anybody to talk to, and I'm just feeling like I'm going crazy, and I just need somebody to talk to. And I just want to know if anybody's playing the game or something." And we sat there and encouraged the guy like for 15 minutes and talked with him, and we're like, "Yeah, dude, there's about 12 guys down in the room right below us that are playing. Why don't you just go down and hook up with them and just go down and introduce yourself? Say, hey, can I play?" So he said, "Okay, I will." And he went down there, and like I was like 2 hours later, he was still down there, and he was having a
That's
ball. He
good.
was having a blast. And so it some of it is, it is outreach, and sometimes the gaming community. Let me say this, Katans, everybody who's a gamer is dysfunctional. Keep that in mind,
It's
right? We're
so
all crazy,
true.
right? So keep
Yes.
that in mind, okay? All of us are nuts. And so always keep that in the back of your head. But at the same time, dude, if you ever stop in test, or if you ever want to come through again, if you see me, holler at me, yell at me. I would be more than happy to introduce you to some people. Or if you just want to talk, whatever, I'm around there. Just look for me.
So you mentioned that you've started up orgs before in the past. What was it about Test Squadron that lured you in?
Ooh, I hate to say it. It was their propaganda. They had a sense of humor.
Oh, okay.
Um, I saw something crazy for them. I don't remember if it was a YouTube video or one of their memes, but there was something I knew nothing about them. I knew nothing about them other than I remember that there was a test in Eve, and I was dreading and hoping, saying, "Oh God, please, I hope this isn't the same guys." And the only reason why I didn't think they were was because of the sense of humor that was in the meme, because test in Eve was much more serious, and so they were more like the goons. And so anyway, I happened to just check in on them, and I want to say it was getting near the time of a Citizen Con. It was either a Citizen Con or maybe the holiday special. You know how CIG used to have those things every once in a while where we'd go on and watch live what was going on. It was something like that,
Yeah.
and whatever it was around that time, and I came in and sat in on one of those. And sitting in with the guys from Test is kind of like sitting in and watching Mystery Science Theater 3000. It can be very comical and humorous. And when I realized that they didn't take things too seriously, because obviously, as you know, when I say too seriously, I'm not saying not take the game seriously, but I'm saying the community can sometimes get so toxic about things. And this is back when there was a lot of the controversy, back in 2014, 15, when there was this whole question about, is the game even going to be made? Is
Mm-hmm.
Squadron 42 going to come out? Are they lying to us?
Yeah.
You had the whole Derek Smart stuff. I mean, there was
Yep.
so much going on
There's
at
so
that
much.
time.
Yep.
But when I came into test, I didn't sense that other than people laughing about it, and talking about the laughability of some of it. And obviously there were people there who were very serious about the game and committed. People like Richard was there, but I'm trying to think of the one gentleman's name, and it just slipped off my head. I always fast card. You have to give me the name of the guy that we were trying to get to come on the show, and it just popped out of my head. He was very well known, aka Miku. I can't think of his first name now. I don't know. I always want to say Richard, but it's not Richard. But I met him and several other people, and yeah, they're just good people, and intelligent. They could talk, communicate intelligently. Clifford, thank you, Grizz. Clifford, aka Miku. They could articulate what the vision of Star Citizen was, and these were people who, they had their heads screwed on right. They weren't fanatics. They weren't people who were just throwing money blindly at some dream. They could articulate the seriousness of the development and what could come from the development, and that drew me in. And after that, I met more people in test, and I decided to go ahead and join up with them.
That's cool. What's your what orgs did you run in the past before Test?
I had the two orgs that I mentioned earlier in there were two in Galaxies. The first one actually merged to become the second one. It was only about maybe 25, 30 people in that one. And then we grew to the larger version of that org, which what we did was we just expanded that everybody could. The other one was much more specialized. This one, we take anybody who had any particular career. And so that one grew to about, when I first came up with those uniforms, and it was like 200 and something people. I want to say it grew to almost 400 people for that org. That was the other one. Those are both Star Wars orgs that I did. Um, in Eve, I was one of the directors, or the second director in one of this mining org that I was in there. Um, and that was it. Those were the only ones that I ever had any type of position or office in, was working with those. But the ones in Star Wars Galaxies, I started both of those orgs.
Eve is fascinating. I'd like to talk to you about Eve a little bit. I don't know anything about Eve. I've never played it before. I had a roommate who played
Count
it.
yourself blessed.
I do. I really do because I identify as an Ultima Online player and not as an
Okay,
Eve player. So I don't know.
that's good.
What's your feelings about Eve?
Eve is a great game. Don't get me wrong. Eve is a very good game. It's very different coming out of Star Wars Galaxies. And unfortunately, the reason why I played Eve was because I still wanted to play some type of space game, and I wanted to play something that was good. And I remember always looking on, when you get gaming magazines, they would always have Eve would always have this ad on the back cover, almost, or inside back cover all the time. This great glossy colored ad, and it always looked really cool. And I remember reading reviews about it, and the only thing that I heard was that it had a high learning curve. That was the only thing that was the negative. Everything else about the game people talked about was great. So when I looked at the marketing for it, the thing that drew me in was that they talked about that if you want to be an explorer, if you want to be a trader, if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to be a corporate head, those things grabbed me. And I was like, okay, this sounds really cool. Different type of aspect of playing a game. I've run orgs before. I would love to be something doing exploration and in those areas. And so I joined the game. And when I got in, I started learning the mechanics of the game. And then I started finding out what the game really was and what the game really is. And I hate to even bring this up because I don't want to start anything with the people who are listening. But what I found out is that the game is more PvP than it is anything else.
Hmm.
And you can't do anything in that game without PvP always
Really, I never
lurking.
realized that.
Always lurking. I mean, always lurking. Um, and so if you want to go explore, be ready to fight. If you want to take your ore in to deposit it to get it, to get paid, be ready to fight. I mean, it was constantly being ready to fight. And not only was it always being ready to fight, if you needed help, you had to have someone with you. If you were a support type person, I'm a support type person. I like doing mining. I like doing trading, things of that nature. And so for me to go out and mine in a game where you could make good money, I would have to have help. I would have to have people there protecting me. Now that's a mechanic of the game. That it's and to a certain degree, Star Citizen will have that same mechanic. The problem was that the balance was so far off in the game that the game lent itself more toward those who would fight you more than to the people on the other side. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. If I were to be attacked by someone and I decided to say, well, I want to put a bounty on their head, the bounty mechanic in the game was always broken. So I could never find another way to get restitution. I would lose my $12 million mining ship, my $100 million in resources that were on it. And that person, what they got in return, they didn't get the mining ship, they didn't get the resources. What they got was a point on the leaderboard,
Hmm.
just basically saying that they got a kill. And
Wow.
that's what they wanted. It wasn't about hijacking me, it wasn't about pirating me, it was not about getting my resources. And for me, that was frustrating, because I would have people who, I'd spend a long time getting certain types of equipments and ships. And if I wanted to go mine somewhere, I'm not talking about going into nullsec. I'm not talking about going out into the far reaches of space. I'm talking about going in mid space or even closer to inner space. in the safer areas and still be attacked in those areas. And by the time the authorities would show up, my stuff's floating in space. I've lost millions of dollars in material, and that person got their leaderboard score. And so that was very off-putting because um, is in the org when I had help, we could manage it. I would support people when they would go out mining, and I'd be a fighter and defend them. That was fine. But if I ever wanted to do anything solo in that game, it became very, very difficult. And so it became very frustrating after investing 6 years, 6.5 years of gameplay into Eve. I just got very, very frustrated with it because what I saw was, even though they said you could do exploration and entrepreneurship and trading, PvP was still here. Fighting was still here, combat was still here, and all those other supportive areas or other aspects of the game that they said you should be able to play and enjoy were very difficult to reach because the bulk of the people in the game, not the bulk, but a lot of the people in the game are in it more for the combat and PvP more than they are about trade or trade lanes, unless they're running an org out in deep space or something like that. So it was very, very frustrating to do that.
Based off of what you just said, I could see now why CIG is trying to kind of prevent some of those things from Eve to spill over into Star Citizen.
Yeah, absolutely. Those mechanics that they're putting in, and it's going to be tough because they've got to balance it out. Because
Yeah.
there should be, I agree, there should be. Space is a deadly place, right? And I think there should be that aspect where you can't completely drop your guard. I think you do have to always be aware, even if it's not another human person. Maybe it's a NPC or an alien. There's always going to be that mystery or something different that could happen in space. And I don't want to take that away from the game because then it becomes boring. I don't want to be able to just completely relax and not have to worry about anything. I want to be able to be prepared for anything. And I do think, as you mentioned, some of the things they're putting in with the law system, uh, the reputation system is going to be huge. See, in Eve, that didn't exist. And so now, if somebody does what I mentioned earlier, this guy attacks me and blows up my ship and does anything else, his reputation is going to start going down the tank. And the more he does that, his reputation goes down. Well, not only am I going to be mad at him, he's going to start showing up on other people's boards saying, hey, if you kill this guy, you guys can make some money off of him. So now I'm not the only person hunting this person down. Now the authorities, if he goes in certain areas, he can't go certain places. Those things will be the things that will balance out, even for that type of player, risk versus reward. Is it worth me attacking that mining ship if it means I can't come back into this system anymore? Or it means that I'm going to go up one more level in my security level, and now there's more heat against me because now I'm going to have a bunch of people coming after me. Those things we didn't have in Eve. There were no guardrails per se to kind of keep balance for both sides, and that's what I think is really important that CIG is going to have to come up with and balance. And I think they're working to get there.
Makes me think actually, um, it's weird because I don't think that griefing went down after the prison system came out. Did you find that at all? Did you find?
The griefing, this is what I did see go down. The pad ramming virtually disappeared
Yeah.
because when the carrot came out, people were literally at Port Olisar just going crazy. That stopped. Um, the griefing did tone down a bit. Now, I'm one of those people that doesn't get grief. I can't tell you. I'm gonna be honest with you, and please doesn't listen, audience. It doesn't mean come get me. I don't get grief that often.
Me
I can't
neither.
even remember the last time I got griefed in Star
Me
Citizen. I
neither.
very rarely remember even being attacked recently in Star Citizen. But that's because from me playing Eve, I have a different way of flying in the game. I don't use major traffic lanes. I break my hyperspaces and change direction sometimes if I even think something's going on in a certain area. I even play during certain times of the day when I know that there are less people on the server if it's something I really want to do. So I think that those are the type of things that people have to think about when they're playing the game. I mean, something as simple as, I mean, literally, if you remember back in the day, people used to sit at Port O and they would watch which way you oriented your ship. And this is before we had all the planets that we have now. But they could tell whether you were going to Daymar, Yella, or going to Levski. And what they would do is they'd see your orientation. And when you would jump, they would do the same thing and jump behind you. And then what they would do is when you came out of quantum and you're trying to prep to do what you're going to do next, they'd pop up right behind you and attack you. Well, the way you get around that is you don't jump straight to Levski. You jump in a different direction, stop mid jump, then turn and go to Levski. Now the person has no way of knowing where you are or where you came from. Now,
Yep.
for some people, they're going to say, well, why should I have to do that? I make all these stuff. If you want to survive in the universe, that's what you have to do. If you decide to stay on major trade lanes and traffic lanes, and Tony Z even referenced this when he talked about the finances and the economy, he said that when those trade lanes go back and forth and people are doing it, pirates and NPCs are going to know that's where the money is, which means you better start thinking about Can I take a different route? Do I need to take one more? Instead of going nonstop, maybe you need to make a stop between, and then you can get where you need to go. So there are just simple tactics like that. You don't have to be a brain surgeon about it, but you have to be aware of how to play the game.
I like that you said being ready to fight. That's like an Eve strategy, because I've had a number of people come by my stream and mention that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess they have the same type of muscle memory, I suppose, and
Mm-hmm.
always like on defense mode with from being on Eve. I just think back in UO, and I'm not really anxious about
Mm-hmm.
being ready to fight. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
in UO, it was more like suicide. I'm always ready to die, basically. Always prepared for death.
Mm.
Um, but the thing about UO is it had this scale that kind of protected you. Did you ever experience that? Did you get that feeling? The world was so vast that no one's ever going to find you?
Yeah, I mean, even now in Star Citizen, one of the things I like about it, unlike Eve, because see, in Eve, when you made a jump through a jump gate or whatever, that was it. You didn't. There was nothing you could do. You'd have to jump from different jump gates, which was entirely different. Where in Star Citizen, you can point a direction and go, and then you can just stop midstream and change your direction. Um, one of the things that I do like about, and of course, we only have 50 people on the server too, so take that into consideration. Take into consideration the 9-to-1 ratio of NPCs aren't in the game either. So right now, that system is very large and very empty. Very seldom do you run into somebody. I mean, even when you're flying into major places like ArcCorp or Hurston, how often do you see 2 or 3 ships coming in at the same time? It's very, very rare. Now, once the servers start to fill up and populate, once we start getting 100, 500, 1,000 people on a server, once you start getting the NPCs flying into these cities and everything else, now you're going to start feeling a little bit differently about at least around the major populated areas. Moons and stuff, yeah, I still think it's going to be rare, very rare. I'm mining a prospector all the time. I have never, ever, I think one time I've been attacked while mining because, and it just happened to be probably the person just happened to see me because I pinged and maybe they just happened to be in the area. I don't think it was because they were like, let me go down here and look for somebody. I think they just happened to stumble across me. So the universe is very big, and we know that even right now, if Star Citizen, people joke about Chris saying 100 systems, but I'm gonna be honest with you. If Chris puts 20 systems, 30 systems in place, the universe is going to be huge. It's
Totally,
going to
yeah.
be gigantic. All the moons, the satellites, the planets, the space stations, the orbitals, asteroid belts. I mean, there's so much space that will be in there for the game, even with thousands of people playing on the server at any given time, because the scale of the game is not like Eve. It's a different type of scale. So for me, I agree. I still think we'll be able to get lost in the verse. I really do. Unless you're in a major traffic lane where it's just obvious that that's the path. It's like a bus stop, right? If the bus is going down, the bus is going to come. That's different. But if the bus goes down a side street and then takes another side street and goes a different way, well, guess what? You have no way of knowing that.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
Impossible. I remember in UO, I used to do lumber trading. So I used to go and get logs of wood and fill them up on my boat. And I used to use a boat everywhere I went. I didn't use the gates because, then a griefer would come and steal the stuff. But I used
Right.
to load everything on a boat and just go out into the ocean. Nobody would ever
Mm-hmm.
find me out there.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Do you
Absolutely.
do you remember in UO when they added trammel?
No.
You don't remember
No.
that? Okay.
Mm-mm.
So that's basically when they split the two worlds. One was PvP and one was not PvP. If you remember
Oh
that.
wait, I do remember that. I didn't
Yeah.
remember that was the name of it. I do remember that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyways, that was the stick that broke the camel's back. I think as far as UO was
Mm-hmm.
occurred because it was kind of a Wild West
Yep.
originally, and I enjoyed that.
Yep.
That's what I
It
mean.
was
I
totally
had this
different.
I had this suicidal mentality. It's like I didn't really care if I was alive or not. It was all just an adrenaline rush. So
Right. Right. Right.
I think that we shouldn't expect no griefing or no combat in Star Citizen. I think
But you
it's
know
kind
what?
of
It's something
unrealistic.
funny that you said that. And Katan's, to answer your question, you are absolutely right. That is in league zones. My point is that they're not going to be able to come in populated areas where they want to do business or do trade, because when they do, they're going to be links in the area, which means they're going to put themselves at risk to do that. Yeah, they can stay out in the wild space if they want to, but at some point you got to come in. You can't stay out there all day unless you want to stay at all pirate areas. And if you want to do that, you're not going to find me in the pirate areas. So I get it. Um, just what you were saying about how the Wild West and how things changed. Um, the other thing in Eve was that Eve allowed you to create what they call clones. So when you died, all you would do is transfer into your clone, and then you would just go back to doing what you were doing. And you could have multiple clones. You could have them in different places, even throughout the universe. Um, and the fact that death was dealt with that way also minimized risk to both players, right? Because all you do is wake up and just start over. In Star Citizen, if they and of course we don't know if Death in the Spaceman is going to be exactly what Chris said several years ago, but what we do know is that death will have meaning in the game. So now the person who's PvPing or initiates PvP has some concerns. The concerns are, not only do I have to worry about my reputation, but if I lose this fight, will I come out of here just injured, minor injuries? Will I come out of here losing an arm? Will I come out of here where I lost my head and my character's totally gone? And now I have to transfer into a brand new character with lower skills and reputation and have to rebuild myself again. Those are factors for risk versus reward for both sides that are going to take place now. Even for me as a defender, if the person goes after me, should I have this fight? Is it worth me dying over this particular thing I have, or do I negotiate and say, hey, listen, I'll pay you? I mean, because I don't need to die. I don't want to die. All that stuff now is factors that will be in the game that I think Eve didn't have. UO didn't have. Other games didn't have, because most games, when you die, doesn't take long before you just kind of spring back and you're back to yourself again. But Star Citizen is supposed to change a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see what they come up with that. But I do believe there's going to be something there that, again, is another guardrail to put balance for both sides.
Well, UO had a death system that's similar to World of Warcraft. Like you just
Mm-hmm.
wander around in a ghost and then get your
Right.
body and recover your crap. If you can't recover your crap,
Yep.
you're screwed. But
Yep.
Star Wars Galaxies, I think, had the best death. Like that's they had the cloning thing as well.
Yep. Yep.
But you only had 3 or 4 attempts. Like if you were doing a dungeon run or something, you only had three or
That's
four
right.
goes at it, and you'd be screwed after that because your
That's
equipment
it.
would wear down.
Worn out. That's right.
Yeah, and then
You get the black rot.
you'd have to spend another 8 hours or something trying to build up your equipment again.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Love it and hate
Yep.
it.
That's good stuff, though. You're right.
Well, I have just these memories of trying to clear dungeons out, and oh man, I
Mm-hmm.
remember like being at the. I don't remember, there was a shuttle area, and you would wait at the shuttle. All your friends would wait at the shuttle. I don't know what dungeon it was, but you'd go from the shuttle to the dungeon. But I just remember waiting the shuttle for like hours because I was waiting for everybody else to clear the dungeon because
Oh.
I couldn't do it with them. I'm like, okay, well, I'll just sit this one out because I died too many
Oh.
times.
Oh my God. Oh. I remember I don't remember what the shuttle was, but do you remember when they made it where you went up to the oh God, what was that ship called? It was the ship in Star Wars that Princess Leia was on. The blockade runner.
Oh yeah, the
That remember that mission when they first introduced that? That was like the
yeah.
coolest thing. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, you're bringing back too many memories
I'm
now.
sorry, I keep going back to. Well, they're good
But you
games.
can't
That's why
help
I
it. I
talk
get
about
it.
it.
I get it. Trust me. I get it.
Especially when it comes to death, because death is like, okay, this is actually a problem in games right now. How do we
Yeah.
fix it? And it's like
Yeah.
we've taken every every stab at it imaginable by the things that we can come
Hmm.
up with, and I don't think anyone's really cracked it. Well, I think Star Wars Galaxies cracked it, but I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I think they changed it after the NGE. I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember that well, but
Yeah.
the
I don't
original, the
remember.
OG one, was badass
It
for sure,
was. Yep. Because you sure hated to die.
and that's a hard thing to do. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, well, that's pretty cool. I played on Starsider, by the way, if you're curious. That's the server that I was
Oh,
on.
okay.
Yeah, just FYI.
Cool.
Um, what's your opinion about Starsider? I was watching one of your videos last night,
Hmm.
and you're talking about it was just introducing the flight model or the female model. It was like pre 3.6.
Hmm.
And I don't know, it was just hilarious listening to that. Just like where we were a year ago and where we
Hmm.
thought we were going to be today.
Right. Right. Right.
But so, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, about the flight about the female model.
Yeah, but the female model, I just thought that was
Oh
funny.
well, I can plug that a little bit because this Sunday
Oh,
we're gonna have Miss Hearts, Epic Lala, and Dr. Mysteria and Green Eyed Gal, and they're going to be talking about women in Star
they're going
Citizen.
to
And I
rip it
guarantee
apart.
And I guarantee you it's going to come up as a subject. Yeah, no
Bloodbath.
question about it that
Well,
they're going to be talking
you should
about
do
it.
it just to get just for the lulls, you
Get the
know.
fire going. Yeah,
Yep.
right. Well, I'll tell you this. Weirdly enough, usually I always play two avatars. I started doing this back when I was playing Star Wars, not Star Wars Galaxies, when I was playing Eve. I always played a brother and sister, and the reason why is because I would run two accounts simultaneously. Um, and so one of them would be doing one thing, like if I was mining, one would be doing the mining, and then the other one would be doing the transport. And I just always kind of kept that theme. And when I came into Star Citizen, I did the same thing. I had two accounts with two characters. I had a male and a female. Um, and a lot of people say, "Why are you playing a female character?" Well, because that's what I used to always do. But then I also did it because, to be honest with you, I was sick of seeing nothing but men run around the universe. So I
That's
wanted
what
to
I
have some
hear.
females running around in the game.
Yeah.
And so uh, I will say this, and this is before the ladies take over this subject on Sunday, but we're in an industry that is predominantly male driven and male run, right? And so, like anything else in the world, whoever the people are that are in power, they make things that are similar to them or things that favor their likings or whatever. So even with Star Citizen, obviously they started with a male character because most of the people were male. But I will give them credit for one thing. In the early days, I remember when the issue came up about women, a female avatar, I remember them saying not just that they were working on it, but that it was important that they got it right. Because in most games, and I never knew this, they said in most games, what they would do is they would create a female avatar, but all they would do is just put men's clothing and armor to make it fit around them. But it wasn't female armor, it was just
Yeah.
a male armor
Right.
on a female body, even to the degree where they would make even the females' heights equal to men, just so they wouldn't have to do the work of reducing and making things fit. So I did appreciate the fact that they were trying to put some thought behind it. Now I will say this: it took a long time for them to do it because we saw female stuff back early, like 2016, 15, maybe when we first started seeing female avatar stuff. It took them a long time. Now they finally got the female character out, but as part of the show for this weekend, one of the things I did was I went around to see how much clothing can fit on the female characters. And I would probably say only about 20%, maybe 30% of the clothing in Star Citizen fits on female characters. All of the rest of it doesn't. And so is that because they just haven't taken the time to do it? Or is it because it's low priority to do it? Or is it because the metrics that are needed? I don't know what that is. But if we want to get women into the game more, if we want them to feel more a part of the universe, like anyone else, you want to be able to, especially in something that's immersive as Star Citizen, you want something that play out that's something that's like you, that looks like you, that in some way resembles you. And when you can't do that, when you're and as men, I don't think we think about it, right? I mean, for me, I choose to play a female character and a male character, but there are a lot of guys that will never pick a female character. When they go to make an avatar, they are automatically going to make a guy. And if you say, dude, make a woman, they'll probably have a fit if you ask them to do it.
Yeah.
Because our natural default is to go toward those things that are familiar to us. So I'm an advocate for the women that they do start putting that time in, because I think if you want to balance out the universe, it can't just be balanced out with men and aliens. We've got to have the women there with us, and we're not going to get as many women in game as men, because the ratio in general in gaming, even though women are very high, I don't know if we'd ever get to the point where they're equal to the men or even more, like how it is in the world where there are more women than men. I don't know. Maybe we will get there one day, but I just want to see more of them in. I really do. Because I think it adds something to the game. I think they bring something different to the game, and I think it would be very cool.
Yeah, I agree. And just as a simpleton, I guess, like, how come it's taking as long as it is to get more clothing for the female model? Like, why? How come
Yeah,
that's?
they did it for New Babbage when they opened the new store there.
Yeah,
All the clothing there fits women, so the new stuff fits.
that's good.
But all the old stuff, you go to Port O or Levski or anything like that, or Grimhex, maybe honestly, I was at Grimhex the other day. I think 2 items, maybe 3 out of everything in that store not only fit the female character, but it actually was the exact same pattern that was on the wall. Some stuff will go on them, but then it doesn't look like what was on the wall. And so again, not to be funny, but women love clothing. If you want to treat them right, they better make sure their clothes are right, because they're going to be they're going to be mad if their clothes aren't right.
Yeah.
You know. But I just hope that they do get on that and balance it out for the female players in the game.
Yep. Well, I mean, I like clothing too. I feel that.
I see in your stylized jacket, which I always love.
Yeah.
I
Well,
love that jacket.
I
Very,
am.
very cool.
I mean, I am the kind of person who always walks around in a an undersuit as well. I never
Hmm.
wear armor, so
Hmm.
I like to keep it fashionable. But
Nice.
I do think it's a tragedy of what's going on with the female model. I don't really
Hmm.
understand how their workforce is divided. I'm not sure if it's just they're
Yeah.
putting all their emphasis in Squadron 42 right now.
Hmm.
I don't know. Like, what's your thoughts about the current roadmap? It's quite dramatic right now.
Good question. There's so much that's based upon the tech, right? Um, I'm a firm believer that I know for a fact. Oh, I shouldn't say it like that. I'm pretty sure that CIG has been working on worlds for a while, right? We've seen things way back when. Thinking back to when we first saw things like ArcCorp and stuff back in the day with Area 18, we know that things like Terra, things like Nyx, things like Pyro, and we know that they've been working on some things, right? Um, but the tech is the issue, right? iCache is one of the things. The inventory cache is one thing. Server meshing and socks are the other two things. And all those things combined, particularly server meshing and and socks, are the two things that will allow the game for them to populate the game with all the things that they want to put into the game. I think one of the things that sometimes it's easy to forget is that some of the things that Star Citizen is doing have been done before in other games. But then there are some things that they're doing that are literally cutting edge and brand new. And I know sometimes people say, well, how is that? I was sharing a few on somebody else's show a little while ago. Um, who was it that was doing this? I can't remember who it was now. I'll think of his name in a second. Um, but it was he went to the bar to order a drink. He was standing in front of the stool. He orders his drink with the bartender. The bartender walks away to make the drink. And while the bartender was away making the drink, another NPC, as you've seen in the game, sometimes they'll push you out of the way. This NPC pushed him out of the way and actually stood in front of him. So it was him, the NPC, then the bar seat, the bar, and then the bartender. So he was literally out of position from where he was when he asked for the drink. He walked over to the right about two spaces and walked up to the bar. And when the bartender finished making the drink, he walked over to where he was at and gave him the drink. Now that was unexpected to me. It was Morphologist who did it. Now that I think about it, it was Morphologist,
Okay.
and I was really shocked. He was even surprised because the natural instinct in most games would have been that at a certain space you ask for the drink, the bartender goes and makes the drink and comes back to that same space. But the fact that it detected that he had moved to another location in the bar and the bartender took it to him is pretty amazing because what it now says is that the AI in the game for doing other things, if you're shopping in a store, if you're buying something in one of the diners or restaurants, that the AI now will have the level of intelligence that when it goes to do something, it can track you no matter where you are in the game if they want it to. And we started to see this a little bit when they started talking about the new combat AI, where now when you get into a firefight with guards, they run out of ammo, they literally will leave the fighting area and go to where the ammo cache is and reload their guns there and then come back and fight, which we didn't have a few months ago. So these things that they're adding to it are going to expand more our what we can do in the game, but even more when we start getting into the area of the iCache and server meshing. This will allow them to be able to expand and create the bigger systems and give us more detail and hopefully eventually expand the servers so that now you can have more people in the servers who are playing. So the building worlds is the easy part. Now I don't mean it in a sense of easy like that. I'm saying that because when they did this last update and they talked about putting in the moons that were around um, Microtech, and they talked about when they redid the moons, they said they redid them within 2 months, where normally it took them a couple years.
Yeah.
So they're able to churn this stuff out now. Now they've got the tools to say, hey, we may not be able to populate it with all the bases and all that, but we can at least create the worlds and get them going. We can put in whole systems now, not just a planet, then adding a couple moons and adding a station. Now we can drop an entire system. But all of that is moot if they can't get the server meshing and the rest of socks finished. And I believe that they're going to get there because they've been making progress. And it's a hurdle. It's not something that's just, throw it in the microwave and it happens. It's going to take time, but we're getting there. And so I feel very promising about it. I know it's frustrating because people are ready to get outside of Stanton. But someone said something to me the other day. They said, you know what? It's nice to be able to say we can go to Pyro, but it would be nicer that if in Stanton, if all of a sudden we could do salvaging, if all of a sudden we could do repair, if all of a sudden we could do medical, if all of a sudden we could do refueling, if all of a sudden, you see what I'm saying? If we could do all that stuff right now, we'd still be content to be in Stanton. But to go to Pyro and have all this new space, but guess what? You still can only do the 2 or 3 mechanics like mining and maybe, shoot yourself with a hypo once in a while. If that's all you can do and you're just going to Pyro, well, big deal. We're going to get bored. As soon as we venture around and go to those moons and visit the planets and stuff, but there's nothing to do. If we can't start implementing any mechanics and piracy in a pirated system, then guess what? Going to Pyro doesn't mean anything. So to be able to say that we can actually do those other mechanics, I agree, is much more viable to me, and I would love to see those things happen. At the same time, I don't want to go to Pyro, but I don't want to go to Pyro and we're just kind of doing the same stuff that we're doing here. So for me, the progress on the roadmap that we're seeing, it's okay. I know a lot of people are bent out about Squadron 42. I just shared this the other day. Squadron 42 is not something I'm all that bent out of shape about. Uh, I think that because they committed something to the community and saying that they were going to deliver something, I think the community has a valid point of saying that, hey, you guys said you're going to show us a video, and that's fine if they want to do that. But for me, I want them to just show that they're having progress on it, and they do that in the monthly report. They send us those telling us that they're making progress on the game. And I'd rather that be the focus. I really don't want to see anything with Squadron 42. I want to come into it with fresh eyes. I want to be able to enjoy it and not having seen some scene that I saw. Oh yeah, I remember when they showed us that 2 years ago. And I don't want them wasting time creating scenes that I don't want to have to worry about either. I just want them to get the game done. And we can, and I know it's hard because Squadron 42 and Star Citizen are walking hand in hand. They're parallel with each other as far as the tech goes. But yeah, I'm okay right now with how things are going.
I'm also not that big of a fan of Squadron 42. I hope to power game through it. I just want to beat it as quickly as possible, get whatever perks I can get for the PU, and then get back to fuel trading whenever that's available.
Cool.
One thing though, the kind of it's weird. Just in my history, my time with Star Citizen is that I remember originally in 2.0 that they really stressed the whole seamless transition between space and planet-side surface. And that was a Derek Smart thing. Like, Derek Smart was always like, oh, you guys will never do this. This is impossible.
That's right.
And, they've achieved it. But the thing is like, they tried really hard to be the first. And I think they were the first. I don't know if, like, No Man's Sky, I don't think they were there yet. And I don't...
It's still a loading screen for them.
Is it really? I didn't even know that. So they haven't even done it yet.
Yeah.
But there's Elite Dangerous. I believe they've accomplished that. But I don't know. It just I wonder how this works. Like they have to maintain a certain pace of feature release just to stay ahead of the game. I'm not sure if they're really accomplishing that or not, though. I don't know.
They're always going to have to, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I mean, we've seen like the VTech, right? The tech that they've done on the moons and the planets. I don't know if anybody's had time recently to go back and look at ArcCorp at nighttime or Hurston at nighttime. They're beautiful. They've added so much to those cities that if all you got to do is go back and find some old videos from a year ago, 6 months ago, even a year and a half ago, and you'll see they look barren compared to how they look now. They're always going to have to be keeping the game basically current, for lack of a better term, graphically, story-wise, and everything. And that's the other thing that people forget about. That also has to continually go on as they evolve the technology and make things better. They've even talked about how they've had to go back and take out old tech and replace things and put in better ways that things operate. And that's a part of the development cycle. And it's very tough to do that in a game that's live. Most games, they're not live. The people aren't playing it. There's no feedback. It gets to beta. That's when people start talking about it. They're trying to keep it current with us just as much as it is for them while they're developing. So they're kind of juggling two different things. They're juggling what's behind the scenes that we don't see, and then they're juggling what we do see. And of course, we know we're not seeing everything because we know that there's plenty of other stuff that we haven't seen. But that's a tightrope for them. And I'm not just saying that to make an excuse. I'm saying that's the reality of development. And a lot of people aren't looking at it from the development side. They're looking at it from the player side. They're looking at it from the side that says, I want to play this game, or I've been waiting 8 years to play this game, or I've paid X number of dollars to play this game. And it's not going to work that way with Star Citizen. Unfortunately, it's not.
It makes me wonder if that's what they're actually building right now. Is just like a method or a set of processes to constantly be rebuilding Star Citizen. So like
Mm-hmm.
30 years in the future, it's just a matter of removing Lego blocks and slapping something
Mm-hmm.
else
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
prettier or
Absolutely.
something like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I mean, like we talk about Unreal quite a bit. Oh, the Unreal Engine is so magical. But the thing is all it is just the efforts of engineers. Like
Mm-hmm.
you give an engineer a long enough time, they'll come up with Unreal. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
that'll work for Crytek as well. I don't know enough about game engines to say that for sure, but
Mm-hmm.
if there's a will, there's a way, right?
Yeah. 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 And with Unreal, the Unreal Engine's beautiful. I mean, it looks really, really good. It'll be interesting to see how well it continues to integrate. I mean, for console players, they got to love it, right? Because it's definitely stepped up graphics for console games without any question about it. Um, but at the same time, Unreal has had an engine that it has constantly had it started out with and is constantly working on and updating and making better and better. Where Star Citizen literally started with the Cry engine, but eventually it had its limitations. And they said it from the very beginning that there were aspects of Crytek's engine that they knew were going to be a problem, but at least it gave them some place to start, a foundation. And then they moved from using that and then moving into Lumberyard. And again, it's morphed into its own thing. Then they still had to develop all the tools that they've been building, which, for a couple of years, that's what it was all about. I mean, we were getting some things, but the reality of it was the tools that they need to develop the game, they're brand new. This is stuff that they created. And people aren't thinking about the fact that those same tools will be things that will be licensed out to other companies later on, where revenue can come in, which is why we can pay $45 or $60, and that's where the price stays. That's why we don't have a pay to win where we're constantly having to put money in with monthly subscriptions, because they have to look at a much bigger picture of what this game and what the development at CIG will do for them as a company, not just with Star Citizen, but for the next independent company that says, hey, we see the tools that you put into this game called Star Citizen. What's the lease on that so that we can use that? There's all these avenues of revenue that can be generated by what they're doing right now, because something's got to sustain the game. Because unlike Eve, which gets a monthly subscription for many people, or Warcraft, you're going to pay monthly fees. You're going to do that. Even though people rake about Elite, people have paid money to stay current in Elite. You have to, every once in a while, you've got to drop another X number of dollars if you want to stay current in Elite. So people aren't thinking about all that dynamic, over the long haul.
You know what I'm thinking about? I'm thinking we should license Star Engine and build UO too to scale. To
Ooh, look at, oh,
scale,
wow, to scale.
right?
Wow. That would be crazy.
Wouldn't that be
Oh my
crazy?
God. That would be crazy.
I don't know. These are the types of things I think about. These are my shower thoughts, I
That's two.
guess.
That's two games we said they need to go back and redo. That's
Well,
the second one that we've
they're
said
gonna do
tonight.
it. I didn't get into Star Citizen. Like I didn't get an account. I was always paying attention to Star Citizen, but I got my Shrouds of the Avatar account
Mm-hmm.
first.
Yes.
So I was
Yes.
into Soda because I'm a huge fan of Richard Garriott, right?
Yep.
And I mean, Richard Garriott and Chris Roberts, I think they're kind of like they're buddies, they're best friends
Yep.
anyways. And I'm like, man, Soda was so premature. Like it just
Mm-hmm.
was the wrong timing. And it's
Yep.
like it makes me wonder if like Garriott was just trying to help out Roberts and it's like, oh, maybe I'll catch him on the rebound or something like that. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
still get a taste of that. But I got some people who come by my stream once in a while and they play Soda. I find that really interesting.
They just recently put something out that he was doing an update or something to sort of, because I have it and I haven't monkeyed around with it in probably a year now, and I really want to, because I want to get that urge to get back into something that Garriott's done. I just haven't made my brain wrap around it. I've been playing ESO, and I probably should try to put some energy back into that.
It's a hard thing to wrap your brain around though, because I find it lacks context, that game, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's kind of like you're wandering around when you first come in it and trying to figure out stuff. I don't know. But see, we came in that early access point too, where there was so much stuff that wasn't there, and so if I revisit it now, maybe I'll feel a little bit differently about it.
Oh, it was one thing though that made Ultima special was the you never really had a clear objective. You'd have to go and talk to NPCs, and that's one thing that
Right.
they had with Soda is like
Yep.
you still had the ability to talk to NPCs, like, "Hello,
Hmm.
how are you
Yep.
today?"
Yep. Yep.
And occasionally I stream Ultima Online because I'm a part of a free
Mm.
server, and you're welcome to join at any
Oh,
time.
cool.
By the way, I always try and get Star Citizen people together
Hmm.
because it's hilarious. But I'm sitting here streaming, and like I never appreciated how fast my typing skills are because I'm so
Hmm.
used to like rapidly speed
Hmm.
typing cat spells, or I don't know, talking vendor sell as quickly as possible. So tell me, Griff, what do you got planned for the future? What's your roadmap look like?
Ooh, boy, oh boy, oh boy, the future, the future, the future. To be honest with you, I'm really happy about where we are right now with Star Citizen. We have our shows already mapped out through, oh, when is it through? Through October. We have all our shows mapped out through October.
That's
So,
good.
and I stopped there because that month is obviously the month when normally we would have been having CitizenCon. It's also the time when we're at the anniversary and we're getting near the end of the year. We'll be in 3.11, hopefully, at that point. So we'll have 312, and then we'll be preparing for 4.0. Of course, a lot of conjecture about what 4.0 will mean. Will 4.0 mean Pyro? Will 4.0 mean server meshing in iCache? Or will 4.0 mean just nothing more than the completion of Stanton with Orison finally installed and Crusader redone? It's hard to say. And so right now, even though we have things planned out through the end of October, the months of November and December are going to kind of be like where we're going to have to assess where we are and obviously where CIG and Star Citizen is in Squadron 42. Um, we are going to be launching a new show starting. When does it start? A new show starting next Friday,
Oh, quite
and
soon.
we are doing a show called Friday Night Live.
Nice.
So, Segellion, you are the first person for me to announce this on because I
Oh,
haven't said anything about it. We've been
big
doing a
news.
campaign, but we haven't said what it was until today. In fact, it went out on Twitter today.
Friday Night Live.
Um, it's called Friday Night Live, and it's basically a show where we're going to be just basically talking about what's happened in Star Citizen for the week, but it'll be much more on a personal level and talking about the things that we've observed in the game, things we've done in the game. We're also going to start playing. The Soul Citizens are going to start playing a little bit more together. We've been always saying we're going to do it, but we just haven't made time. But Friday Night Live is the next big step for us because it's an interactive show where we get to talk to our viewers and they get to actually talk with us instead of just typing in chat. They will actually get to talk to us. So it's going to be interesting to see how well that goes. Fast Card is shaking in his boots, wondering whether or not we're going to be able to handle live conversations. But kind of think of like how it was back in the day when people would do a live call-in show on the radio. It'll be something like that. And so we're hoping to have a lot of fun with folks when we start doing that. So we're going to test the waters with it and see how it goes.
So this is going to be all in game then? People are going to.
No, that part will be literally just a talk show, but it'll
Okay.
be where where guests get to come on the show and talk with. Like right now, you just have me, but imagine if you were to tell everyone in your chat right now, okay, you can come talk to me and Griff. We're going to do that.
Okay, so like
So,
in Discord or some people join the Discord.
right, exactly.
Okay.
They'll come in Discord and they'll talk with us, and we'll talk with them about the game instead of them just listening to us give our 2 cents about it. We'll get to hear what they think, and they can ask us questions directly. So that'll be the new thing that we're going to be working on, and in the process of that, we are going to start playing live as a group in Star Citizen, but that'll be a separate thing. That'll probably be on. We're looking at Saturday nights to do something like that.
Okay, I see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's pretty cool. How are you planning your shows until October 30th? That's crazy. How do you do that?
Well, again, we have the luck of not being contingent upon what CIG is doing.
I see.
And so there's so much to talk about, both from, what has happened, what's happening, and what's going to happen. And so, for example, 2 weeks of the month, and Fast Cart and I decided to do this early in the year because when COVID, you mentioned this earlier, when COVID kicked off, we were, of course, all looking forward to going to CitizenCon this year in Los Angeles, but we also knew in the back of our minds that there was a possibility that CitizenCon may not happen. And so we decided to do was 1 week out of the month, we went back and we watched we watched the original announcement of GDC of Chris Roberts about Star Citizen because a lot of people had never seen that before. And we talked about the original vision. And then once a month we do a citizen con. So we did citizen con 13, 14, 15, 16. uh Excuse me, 17 is coming up. Boy, I'm getting these belches, I'm sorry. And at each one of those shows, it's been great because we've been able to go back and see some things that we forgot about. There have been things that we've been able to remember, things that we heard, say, oh man, they did talk about this back then. And again, as I mentioned, we had quite a few people who had never seen some of those shows. And so they're like, wow, we didn't know that this is where things came from and how it was back in the day. So that's been one thing that we've done each month. And the other thing that we've been doing each month is covering the careers in Star Citizen. So we've been talking about trading. We've been talking about exploration. We've been talking about medical. We've been talking about these different topics each month too. Since we only come on once a week, it's easy. And then the other 2 weeks, the first week of the month and the last week of the month, we take on some type of topic. So like when you were on a couple of weeks ago, it was dealing with role playing. That
Right.
happened to be the subject that we were talking about. This week, it's about women in Star Citizen. So we kind of plan it out that way. So 2 of those shows are very automatic and easy to do, the second week and third week, which is one of the conventions and then one of the careers. But the other 2 shows are the ones that we really have to map out. So we're going to be talking about mocap coming up. We're going to be talking about Squadron 42. There's a bunch of different topics that we're talking about, multiplayer ships, all this stuff. So yeah, it's just a matter of just sitting down and mapping it out and talking with about stuff off Fast Carton. He'll tell me, yeah, it sounds good or it stinks, whatever. But it's about it.
Well, man, I wish you the best of luck. It's cool you got a new show. I'm
Well,
stoked for
thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll be
Thank
sure to
you. We'll
stop
see how
by
it
and
goes. We're hoping to have fun with that one. The other one, we have fun with the other one too, but this one's a little bit more free form and hopefully you'll have a good time with
this is what I was saying. You're the talk show connoisseur. You laughed when I said that before, but now you see why I was thinking that, right?
it. Well, I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're learning as we go.
What do you mentioned before you're talking a bit about 4.0, and I'm just curious, what do you think 4.0 should be?
Well, obviously, whenever we go to 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, that's usually a landmark point in development. And so, for me, it could be one of two things for me. Pyro doesn't necessarily have to be that, but if they come up with the server meshing and socks, if they get that finally locked down, and we're able to expand the servers to more players, that would be great. Or if they're able to finish Stanton with Orison, which again would probably still lead itself to server meshing or something like that, because they've got to get Levski out of there eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Levski's got to disappear and go into Nyx. So even if they decide to do that and maybe pull Levski out and then put Orison in, I would love to just see that happen. The completion of Stanton as 4.0.
Okay.
But either one of those would be fine with me.
That's what yeah, I would agree. Yeah, 4.0,
Mm-hmm.
I think something like that. Also, I did want to ask, what do you actually enjoy doing in Star Citizen when you're not doing talk shows?
Ooh, I'm mining is still my thing that I
You like
love doing.
mining? Yeah.
I still love mining. That's still the
Got to
thing I
be
love to
more
do.
specific, I think, because there's different types of mining now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I like all of them,
You like
believe
all
it
of
or
them?
not. I do more solo mining in a prospector. I have all the mining ships, so I can do any of them. Obviously, the Orion's not in the game, and I'm looking forward to having that in the game. The Mole is in the game, but it's a multiplayer ship, so you have to have multiple people in it. And usually that it's easier just to jump into a single ship. I don't mind jumping in with other people, so that's fine. But I'm a big support person. I'm looking forward to the other aspects of the game as far as being in an org. Um, as being in test, for example, what I would love doing is refueling. I would love going to do medical responding, like an ambulance with the Cutlass Red or with the I can't think of the other ship, but those are the type of things I really really like doing. I'm not a big combat player. I can do combat to defend myself, but it's not really my thing. If I did do combat, it would be again for the org, and I'm up into doing like bombers. So the Retaliator, the Eclipse, things of that nature. That's once again support level squadrons that come in and hit the target hard and pull out. That's me. I'm not the Maverick or the Ace fighter pilot, but I will do support level stuff. I'll fly a Valkyrie and drop in the troops, those type of things. Anything that's support is really, really what I like. And that's one of the things I like about Star Citizen is that all that variety is there so that if the org just needs to say, hey, Griff, we need somebody to come drop off fuel, I can do that. If somebody says, hey, we need somebody to drop the troops into a fight zone, I can do that. If somebody says, hey, we need you to go do some mining because we need some resources, I can do that. Those are the things that I really, really like doing in Star Citizen.
Did you do a lot of that kind of stuff when you were in SWG or in Eve?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And even, I mean, outside of the org, running the org, I mean, it was great to do some combat stuff like, go after a crate dragon or something like that. But in general, I ran like the mining farms and stuff. I was always into like supplying and making sure that our town had everything that it needed on a resource level. I'm just really weird like that with logistics. Just that type of stuff is something I'm really into more than the fighting and combat, even though I did enjoy doing it. And I love doing things like even in dungeon games, I love doing dungeon crawls with groups of people and running and stuff like that. But when it comes to just me by myself, I love doing support stuff. That's my thing.
That's cool. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
well, it's yeah, there's a lot of stuff I guess we have coming soon TM, right? For that support
Hopefully,
stuff.
yeah,
Hopefully, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, you and me
definitely.
both. I'm looking forward to cooking. I think cooking would be fun.
Oh, that would be great. I can't wait till they finally get the refrigerators and things working on our ship, so we don't have to keep buying it. We can put it in there, and the food's
Oh
in there.
God, isn't that the most annoying? Because like, okay, so I'm always, well, I'm not always starving, but I'm starving a lot. I think they added food a little bit later at Hurston. Like I think they added at Microtech first, and then eventually they
Mm-hmm.
added in Hurston. But either way, for some reason, I never thought there was food at Hurston, and I swear it was like that for weeks. So I was always hungry. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember this one point where um, somebody was at Microtech. They were gonna come fly with me, and I'm like, hey, pick me up a sandwich while you're at Microtech, and they did that, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, first food delivery of the verse, not
Wow.
actually, but like
And I've got a question for you because you told me that you've made Hurston your home, and I'm surprised you're not at Microtech. What made you choose Hurston?
Laranite and titanium.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you need to be able to access for your company. That makes sense. Okay.
I mean,
The method to the madness is there now. I get it.
yeah,
Okay.
I
I get
don't
it.
like that I'm there, but it's my job. That's the thing. It's like I have a hard time distinguishing between reality and the virtual world. I
Yeah.
live in Star
Yeah.
Citizen, or I live in Lorville because this is how I make a living. And
Okay. I
damn,
get
it's
it.
expensive.
I get it. Well, you know what you've got to do though? You've got to be able to at least throw your corporate parties in Microtech, and you can have your business offices at Hurston, maybe
Yeah,
something like that. I don't know.
something like that. I don't
Because
know.
you look too just too well together and corporate and elegant to be around the dust of Hurston. You've got a real nice clean look about you. I just keep picturing you for some reason in some penthouse office in Microtech, but that's just me.
It's so complicated. Like it's not. It's quite. I don't know the difference between complicated and convoluted, but I want to say it's
Mm-hmm.
convoluted. But you got to think about. There's no fuel, so like
Mm-hmm.
all I do right now is do trade, and I want to make as much money as possible because I do
Right.
streaming. Right, I stream Monday to Friday, and
Mm-hmm.
I try to have people on my stream so
Mm-hmm.
I can make the money, and I have a spreadsheet and a graphic and all that fancy stuff on my stream,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. That's the show. That's it. There's nothing
Mm-hmm.
outside of that. So
Mm-hmm.
Lorville is the best way to do it. It's
Yeah.
meta
Makes
trade.
sense.
So
Yeah. Makes
that'll
sense.
100%. I'm not attached to anything. I'm so happy to throw this old life away and
Mm-hmm.
go into to fuel because I look at fuel like a search and rescue almost.
Right. Right. Right.
It's a search and rescue with food, really,
Mm-hmm.
because your ships are hungry and you have to go and feed them.
Gotta
So
have it.
yeah, that's
Gotta have it.
I want to be a food delivery guy.
Yeah. No fuel in space. You're not going anywhere. That's for sure. I love it.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we've passed the 2 hour mark. So I don't know. Is there anything? Is there any icing on the cake? Is there anything that we might have
No,
missed?
no, I had a great time talking to you and just learning a lot more about you and the show and everything. This was really, really cool. Thank you for so much for inviting me to be on. It was a surprise, but I had a great time.
Oh man, thank you so much for attending. I really appreciate it. It was good chatting with you as well. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm gonna have guys. Thanks so much for watching the show tonight. This is gonna be up on YouTube later, and I'll have all your good details on there. And next week I'm gonna have Crazy Tonkai on, so be sure to stop by next
Oh,
Friday as
cool.
well. Yeah, if you guys know Crazy Tonkai, he's great.
Yeah, it's
Until then,
awesome.
guys, thanks again. Have a good
Take care,
night.
guys. Have a good night.